Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 436. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I want to move into that neighborhood, into that neighborhood. So says the sensei of the What's Not, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know. It actually sounds like I said, so says the sensei of the What's Not.
Yeah, well, what's not, what not. It's all about the same. You think it's funny, but it's not.
Oh. On that note, we are going to be talking some comics on this episode. Actually, we start off by talking about, we're going to be talking a little bit about that Batman Arkham Knight game that was just released. We're going to be talking about Secret Six. We're going to talk about All-Star Section 8. We're going to talk about Green Arrow. We're going to talk about Wonder Woman, the recent events there, and through a listener voicemail, we're actually going to talk about the most recent issue of Superman Wonder Woman. Lots of cool stuff to talk about on this episode. What we're going to be doing over the next month or so is either talking about the first issue or the second issue of all of these titles with revamps and changes and things. So we're going to try to get to, we're going to get to everybody along the way. But I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups to recent dialogue that we've had about a variety of these issues, because a lot of cool things are happening at DC right now. It's a fun time to be a fan. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Before we talk about our DCB service ad, I'd actually like to put a shout out of Kickstarter. Jamal Eigel has relaunched the Molly Danger Kickstarter, and it's going to be for it's a lesser amount that he's shooting for, because he's not putting the audiobook in there this time. What he's doing is doing an ongoing series Kickstarter, and it's going to be a continuation of Molly Danger. He's going to be funding keeping the series going, and I'm really thrilled to see that it's basically Molly Danger Season 2. I love this book. I'm a huge fan of it. There's a lot of, if you didn't get the first Molly Danger, there's a lot of the Kickstarters where there's a chance, a lot of the pledges, I should say, where there's a chance to get the first series and the second. So I encourage you to take a look through the different pledge amounts. It's a very inexpensive pledge, depending on what route you want to go, but you can fund and get all kinds of different cool swag and different items. I'm really excited for this. I'm a big Molly Danger fan. We shouted it out passionately the first time through. I'm glad he launched it. It's a $30,000 goal. He's already halfway there as of when we're recording this. There's 261 backers already. He's got it to 14,800. This is going to go through as long as we pitch in and help out. If you're a Molly fan, check it out. If you haven't, there's a wonderful video that explains why you should be a Molly fan. And Jamal is a longtime friend of the show. I want to shout it out for him because I just think it's a really cool project. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, this is like the coolest time of the month. They're getting ready to launch the new discounts. So you want to head over there, check out what the July discounts are going to be over at DCBService.com. Remember, they're a digital partner. Whether you do MyDigitalComics.com or Comixology, make sure to link your accounts, but also remember to shop through their portal. It doesn't cost you anything more, but 5% of those purchases go towards your DCB service order. It's a great way to get something more for something you're already doing. Over at InStockTrades.com, big fan of the deals of the week. Cool things I want to shout out is Witches Trade Paperback Volume 1. This is from Scott Snyder. This was actually work that he recently did, an independent creator-owned work called Witches. That's 50% off, only $4.99. JSA Omnibus Hardcover Volume 3. 50% off, only $62.50. Highest possible recommendation on this run of JSA, written by Jeff Johns. Really great stuff. The JSA Omnibus Hardcover Volume 3 is something that I want to recommend. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics, neighbor.
There they are, all alone, except for that old character.
So, Jim, this week, the Batman game came out, and, I wanted to do and I rarely want to do this, they had a midnight opening at the Best Buy around the corner from me, and I'd done my pre-order through Best Buy. But it was one of those things where work just didn't allow for it. I had a big meeting the next morning, so I'm like, I want to do it, but I'm just not going. I'll be good. I'm not going to do it. But I got the collector's edition, and it comes with this big, huge Gotham Knight statue. It's like a tribute to Batman. This is supposed to be the last game in the series, and it's been a 3-game series / 4 games. They did 3 games. They did the initial game, then they did Arkham City as a follow-up. But the first game was Arkham Asylum, then they did Arkham City, and now this one, Arkham Knight. They did one that was done by a different studio, but it was in the same story universe called Arkham Origins. And some people don't consider that part of it. I do. I actually quite liked that game, even though it seemed to get bashed by a lot of people. It's not quite up to the Rocksteady standards, but it was still a great game in its own right. The thing I really like about this is you feel like you're Batman in it. You have full control of Batman. You have full control of the gadgets. I do want to say before I start talking about this, I'm about 20% in the game right now. I don't know how I can talk about this without spoiling certain elements of the first 20% of the game. So if you haven't played it or you don't want to have that spoiled, I'm doing this as a separate segment because I don't want to ruin anything for people that are like, hey, I kind of want to stay away from that. So it's just the first 20% of the game. I'm going to get a little spoilery because there's cool parts of it, and I don't know how to describe the game without putting those elements in. So the cool part about this game is it's the third one in the series, and there's a continuity. In the continuity, at the end of the last game, the Joker died. Batman and Joker had these epic battles. The Joker's dead. How it plays into this game and why it's a cool part and why I had to spoil that part. In the game, you start off initially having this huge battle with the Scarecrow. The city's been evacuated, and the Scarecrow is releasing this new version of the Scarecrow toxin that he's doing in Ace Chemicals. Batman gets zapped with it. Batman, over the years has developed a tolerance to it because of being Batman and dealing with the Scarecrow many times, but this adds a cool effect into the game. The Batman's fear and what the toxin's doing to him is he sees the Joker everywhere. So your running buddy in the game is the Joker.
Oh, cool.
Yes, it's really a cool mechanic. He's not there constantly, but quite a bit. So you'll be in a room and you'll be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden, partway through the conversation, they'll turn into the Joker. And the Joker's talking to you, and he's doing, the typical Joker's jokes and things like that. Batman, is dealing with that. He'll appear like up on a ledge. He'll appear in front of you, sitting and lounging in a chair. But everything that he's talking about is in context of what you're currently doing. And he'll refer to things like, I didn't know you were Bruce Wayne. If I wanted to know you were Bruce Wayne, I would have, sought that out. But it was so much more fun, the dance that we were playing. All the kind of stuff you would expect from the Joker.
Oh, cool.
The humor's incredible in it because it really is a well-written Joker. And it's been throughout the whole series. In this one in particular, the cool part is that he's with you constantly as, like, almost your twisted conscience. That makes it really awesome in the game. He'll sometimes reveal things to you that you need to do, in the sense that he'll walk up and do funny commentary in a certain area. So it's just an interesting dynamic. Besides the Joker being in this game, so far I've encountered, Oracle's in it. Barbara Gordon as Oracle. Robin's in it. Nightwing is in it. Catwoman's in it. And they've added a new mechanic in this one where if you're in a situation where one of those other characters is there, they will team up with you. And you can do special team-up moves hitting the L1 button. And I'm playing on PlayStation 4, so it's, that's whatever the comparative button is on the Xbox and on the PC version. You can do the same thing. When you do the team-up move, it will do a 2-player team-up move and then swap you over to the other character. Then when you do a team-up move as that character, it swaps you back to being Batman. So there's moments in the game where I've played already as Nightwing, where I've played as Catwoman, in the battle as Batman. You're still playing Batman as your main character, but in those moments it adds like this organic feel of, wow, I'm really teaming up with these people. So that was a new mechanic in this that I really quite enjoy. The other part that I really like about it, this is the first one where you can drive the Batmobile. The Batmobile driving isn't like isolated to specific levels like you would, some games where they limit you. The Batmobile, you can jump into that baby pretty much so anytime you want to in the game and use it as a way to traverse the city. So you can still use the grapple gun like it's been in the previous 2 games, or 3 games, to travel around and use your cape to kind of do the gliding thing, to get around the city pretty quickly using the building rooftops. And you have to at many times because of the fact there's certain areas the Batmobile can't access yet, and you have to create access. But the Batmobile isn't just there as show. You need the Batmobile throughout the game in order to get to certain areas, to do certain things. The Batmobile has 2 modes. It has like a regular driving mode, then it has a battle mode. The cool part about the battle mode is, in keeping with the theme that it's Batman, he has like suppression rounds as opposed to rounds that, are designed to kill or hurt people. But you do up and go against these tank-like drones, because your big villain in this one is, besides the Scarecrow, it's also this character called the Arkham Knight. Now, it's been revealed online who the Arkham Knight is. I don't know yet. I deliberately avoided that just because I didn't want to know. I want to find it in the game when it reveals it in the game. I'm also reading the tie-in comic, but I stopped at a certain point because I thought I read that the tie-in comic reveals who he is, and I don't want to know yet. The tie-in comic's really tremendous, by the way, for anybody who wants to read at least so far what I've read of it. Peter Tomasi was doing it, so I mean, how do you go wrong there, right?
Yeah.
But the cool part about the Arkham Knight is you're trying to figure out who the character is. I have my suspicions on who it is just based on the characters. He's got a similar suit to Batman's. He knows Batman's fight styles. He has some form of military training. I'm thinking Red Hood. I don't know that that's who it is. I'm thinking they're doing maybe that storyline, but I could be totally dead wrong on that, and I don't really care right now because I'm sure there's going to be something in the game that reveals who he is. He has a history with Batman, though, and it really feels very much like that story, but don't care, just enjoying the ride. It's like any speculation we do on here about a comic, and that's what I love about this. A lot of games nowadays rely too much on cutscenes, and you're like, what point in time do I feel like I'm playing? This has cutscenes, but the beauty of it is a lot of the stories told through, you'll fight some villains, you'll do detective work, and all of a sudden on your wrist, your forearm, you've got this screen that pops up and it's your communication. You're talking to Alfred, you're talking to Oracle, you're talking to Jim Gordon. You're communicating to people through that. And that's the way the story starts to unfold and develop, through your detective work and through your interactivity. You also are talking through the Arkham Knight through that, because there's points in time where you connect with him through hacking into his network. It's a really great game, and it feels like you're playing as Batman. And I love that throughout it. Rocksteady is the developer. And I know they said this is the last one in this series. I hope it's not their last Batman game. I hope at some point in time, I know they were bought by Warner Interactive. I'm hoping they do another one because it's that good. Or at the very least, like Arkham Origins, that another studio takes the game engine and does something cool with it, and maybe Rocksteady does another Hero. Because they so have nailed the feeling of being Batman. I've grown up with some really good Batman games and some really horrible ones. Sunsoft made terrific Batman games back in the day for the old NES, straight on through to like Genesis and things like that, and they really did a great job of developing Batman like in those 2D side-scrollers. This is a fully imagined 3D interactive Batman world. There's unlockable costumes. Some of them are with, like the collector's edition, I got the new 52 costumes. PlayStation had some exclusive, like the Batman 66 costume you can wear. I'm currently using the Flashpoint Batman costume as my costume because I think it's a really cool costume. The Batmobile, you can skin it with different costume skins, so I used the 66 one. It still looks like the tank that it is in the game, but it's got like 1966 Batmobile decals and stuff on it now. So it's really cool, because those decals, if you skin them on a tank, they look awesome.
That's awesome.
So it's really a fun game. It's everything as a geeky Batman fan you would want. There's specific references to classic Batman storylines, and some of them play out through your Scarecrow fear gas scenario, and I'm not going to reveal any of that. You'll just play that in the game if you're somebody who's interested in that. But I loved that there was certain sequence. I'm like, this is straight out of a comic book. Oh my God, it's so cool to see this playing out in front of you. There's other things that play out in front of you that you get kind of into Batman's psyche, and it's a really deep game. The story's well written, and I love that they treat the property with the reverence. I mean, this could be a movie. This could be a Batman movie. It feels like that. And anybody who's on the fence as far as, geez, I don't have a next-gen console as far as to play this, or, I don't have the PC version I heard is really broken right now. They actually you can't buy it right now. They released it, and there was all kinds of problems, but they'll fix it. So I do recommend if you're a PC user, just wait. They'll release it and fixed and all that. These things happen. It probably comes from developing for too many different environments at once. But, oh my gosh, on the console version, I'm playing on the PS4. This is Batman perfection. It really is. If you're on the fence as far as buying a console, this is one of the games to buy the console for if you're a Batman fan, because it is that good. I just love... Here's the great part. I love getting in the Batmobile and just driving around. I love getting out of the Batmobile and just running around the city. You can fight... There's villains in the streets, because the city's been taken over because of the Scarecrow's fear toxin, been taken over by various thugs, not just the Scarecrows, but thugs associated with others of Batman's enemies as well. So there's a lot of crime going on in the city. It's a very open world engine, so you can just kind of randomly go, I don't want to do anything story based right now. I just want to tool around and play. You can tool around and play as Batman. It's cool. So,
can you crank some tunes, drop the window down, let the wind blow through your hair?
You take off the cowl, you do that, and he's very Fabio looking when you do that. No, you can't do that, but you can play your own tunes while you're doing it. So, which I often do. I'll throw on my my little Beats pill, and I'll throw on. I actually have done that. I've thrown on some podcasts, and I just, instead of doing the story missions at that time, I'll just run around Gotham and beat people up. It's kind of fun. It is. It's a sandbox for people who like that type of thing. On the other hand, if you're like, I just want story, you can do tons of story-based missions. They have a season pass for it, which is an additional $39. But what the season pass does is that there's going to be, over the next 6 months, lots of extra downloadable content. The game in and of itself, you don't need any of that content to enjoy it. Out of the box, it's a great game. But I like the fact that, for the next 6 months, I'm going to be getting lots of new missions and things like that, that'll be adding on to the entertainment value of the game. They said they're going to support it for at least 6 months of downloadable content, of extra content added into the game, including new Batmobiles, new missions, new costumes, new stuff like that you can play around with. So it's really cool. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's just a really fun game.
Now, are all the other games available? Like, if you got the PS4, would you be able to play the other games as well?
They're releasing for it, and I think it's in the fall that it's coming out.
Okay.
What they're doing for the PS4 is they're releasing the first 2 Rocksteady games, Arkham Asylum and Arkham Origins, that are bumped up, for the new visuals, remastered. They've done that recently with The Last of Us for the PS4. They're doing it with Uncharted for the PS4, but it's going to be for both systems, Xbox and PS4. They're re-releasing the Batman Arkham games. They're only releasing the 2 that were done by Rocksteady. Origins is a prequel, and some people consider that part of the series, and some people don't, because it was done by a different studio. You really don't need Origins to enjoy any of this game, so that would be the only one that you.
Okay.
That would be the only one that you couldn't play. As far as if you're going to do that, but they are going to re-release them. The wait is worth it because they're redoing. Like, I have the games for my PS3, but I will likely buy that just for the improved visuals, and they're going to put some extra stuff in there, as they inevitably do when they do these remasters, that would make it worth getting them again if you're a huge fan of the game. For me, visuals alone would be a reason for me to grab it again, just to have those visuals, and to have them all on one console.
Now, same gameplay and action, all the actual control wise, it's all this continuations of what was before. Or?
Yes, basically, it's been an improvement in each game. The first one out of the box, Arkham Asylum, I adored it. I mean, it played really well out of the box. There's certain fight mechanics. The good part is every game they've tweaked and improved it, added on. You're able to do new things. You're able to do more. There's more gadgets. There's more tools, more interactivity with it. So I would highly recommend the first game right out of the box. Great game, fun to play. It's a more contained area. Arkham Asylum you really were kind of in the asylum. Joker had taken over Arkham Asylum, and that was the premise of that story. So the area isn't as big, but there was a ton of backtracking and things you had to do throughout the asylum in order to, because the asylum was obviously used as a big prison and things like that. So you had to make your way through multiple floors of the asylum and really try to take down the Joker and his band. The next one was Arkham City. Because of how crazy things had gotten, Arkham Asylum wasn't enough. There was a push to have this big, almost city-like area that housed all the villains. That would have the inherent problem you would think it would have, having that many people housed in such a widespread area. But the reason why they did that is it also added the mechanic of it being a much larger area with outdoor spaces as well that you could play through. And then this one has taken the open world. Now you're throughout all of Gotham City.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that concept of just being able to chill and relax and drive, cruise around Gotham and see the sights.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's really, really cool. It's a Gotham that most of the people have left the town because of the Scarecrow gas. They had that's right in the opening. That's not something basically if you bought the game and you watch the opening video, you're going to see that that's what they're doing. People are leaving. What I love about the mentioning the videos, the story-driven videos that kind of enhance everything. It's all done in game engine, so you never feel at any point in time like you're being taken out of the world that you're playing in. And that's the part that's really nice. The graphics have gotten to the point in these games where it's seamless between cutscenes and the actual gameplay action that you're doing. So a lot of times it'll be like, wait, I'm back in the game? You don't realize it because it's done in the same engine. And I love that. I love that it's very immersive that way. There's times where it feels like Batman's talking to you. When he explains things that he's doing, it feels like he's talking to you, even though you're controlling him. And I like that element as well.
Cool.
So it's a fun game, and I do highly recommend it for people who are like, hey, I'm interested in doing a game system thing. What game should I get? If you're a Batman fan, you're listening to this is really a no-brainer. The historical references alone make it well worth it. It doesn't ignore DC history. The nice part is this game does have its own continuity, the game series. So the 3 games have a real tight continuity, and they stick really close to what that game continuity is. But it's also very true to the comics. So they do skirt some lines a little bit in the set. Kind of like the Batman, best comparison, Batman in the animated series. Remember how that animated series kind of had its own continuity going on? It wasn't exactly tied to the comics, but you're like, wow, that's as close as you need to get. This is the same thing. It's as close as you need to get. Everybody feels right. They've developed their own continuity. Obviously, by the fact that I said that Oracle's in it, that tells you it has its own continuity.
Right. That's cool.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
Our first comic discussion this episode is going to be of Secret Six number 3. The writer is Gail Simone. The artist is Dale Eaglesham. The colors are by Jason Wright. Letters by Travis Lanham. Cover by Eaglesham with Wright. Joker's 75th anniversary cover by Dan Jurgens. Danny Mickey. Alex Sinclair. Assistant editor is David Pina. And the group editor is Jim Chadwick. And apologies for any name butchery. All I've got to say is one thing, and this is going to be the first time where I'm singing on the show in a while. These are the people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood. I don't know what it is with Secret Six and Muppets. We at one time on this show cast Muppet Secret Six. This version of Secret Six, it must be Sesame Street Secret Six. I don't know what it is. I could not say how much fun I had with this issue. The beauty of it is it takes this team and they're trying to hide out in this neighborhood and kind of, deal with being under the radar. Well, these are extreme personalities. For them to remain under the radar just is not going to happen. It leads to these funny moments that are while they're funny, at the same time, there's a deep psychological thing going on when you see them trying to integrate somehow into society on any level. I loved that about this issue. Yes, it was fun. Yes, it was funny. But besides that, it was really kind of a brilliant study on what these type of personalities, what kind of problems they'd have doing that. And I loved that serious aspect in the humor. And this issue, I could not, I've read this issue 7 times. And I kid you not on that. And the reason why is it's so fun. It's a great book. This book has been such a surprise for me in the sense that I knew what I expected from it. And I knew I was going to get that. This is so far beyond what I was expecting and such a surprise on the level I'm expecting it. The different character choices that she made as far as making them a cast in this was brilliant because they've added everything in the twisted aspect that I like about Secret Six, while at the same time give me some new people to get to know. I love the Mockingbird mystery in this whole thing. We know who Mockingbird is, but at the same time, I love that one of the members of the team, probably the last one I would have expected, was the traitor. Yeah. And what does that mean for the team down the road? That's never clean. Doesn't necessarily mean that character's going to be gone down the road, but man, am I loving this book. I got diarrhea of the mouth right now. I'm going to let you have a say in this one. What are your thoughts on Secret Six?
One of the definitions for me of an amazing writer, an amazing art crew, etc., is when you go into it knowing, oh, this is going to be awesome, and you still catch yourself going, oh my God, you still get that shocking moments. You still get that, oh, I didn't even see that one coming. I'm sitting here just absolutely going, yes, thank you for bringing back Secret Six. I am so ecstatically happy right now that we get this. And you talk about like your 7 read-throughs. I've had about that many with this, and with this, it's funny because the story, once you learn the swerves, the story reads differently. You start looking for different things. But also, my art read-throughs, I found I've had to do 2 or 3 art read-throughs because even though I'm doing a read-through where I'm not focusing on any words, I'm just focusing on the images that I'm seeing, I still missed a ton of stuff. And it's some of the little funny moments that you miss, but it's some of the little, hey, that's kind of a clue as to who that person really is. I never caught that before. That's neat. So I absolutely we've said before, multiple read-throughs. Please, with Secret Six, do yourself a favor. Read through this multiple times. Times focus where you're only on the artwork. Times you're focused on the story. Times where you just take your time with a page and just savor. Just savor it like a fine wine. This isn't, a shot in a beer. This is something that's, that should be savored and enjoyed.
We need more comics with raccoons carrying away trash cans. I mean, that was like the greatest. I was like sitting there, I'm like, what a random thing to draw into the scene, and I absolutely adored it. What a great idea, just fun.
That was one of the things I missed on my that was something I caught on the second art read through. Was the little raccoons. I was like, wait a minute, because you're focused on, especially that page. You got this, complete jerk beating up a dog, and you got Catman who doesn't like dogs, but he doesn't like, he doesn't like turds worse, So he's gonna do something about this. I love just this moment. You're so focused on the intensity on each of their faces, and just that smug look on the one guy going, oh, he is so gonna get a beating by the end of this episode. It's gonna happen. That you miss something like the little raccoon. 3 raccoons carrying off a trash can.
Both of them, they look like they're giggling.
yeah, they're having fun with it. They're like, woohoo!
In the first page, one of the things, I don't know if you caught this part, the scissors, the limbo, like you mean it? There's little scissors up there in the upper right-hand corner. Like, first of all, I don't know how I could do that to my iPad, but on the paper copy that I have of the comic too, sitting here, am I supposed to cut this? And what if I do that? And it's so wrong. I love that there's scissors there for those little borders. To take that part out of it, though, too, I really liked the headings because they were fun. They kind of they separated scenes. I don't know that they need to do it every issue. I don't know what the plan is on this one, but in this issue in particular, I love that they're playing around with how to tell stories in this book. And issue 1 was different than issue 2, than issue 3. This book is having fun with, okay, what kind of framing fits this story? And I guess that's what I'm going for there. I really liked the way that these headers worked for this. They were fun. It kept kind of a fun factor into this. Fun is something you're going to hear me say a lot in this one. A lot of times we forget to embrace fun when it comes to comics. I love it on my favorite television shows. They're fun to watch. I want to have a good time with this. I read this book over and over again because it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I had a crazy, I know you did too, crazy week this week. I ended up picking this up. I was really enjoying everything I read this week, but I wound up going back to this again and again just because of how fun it was. I started off with this commentary about this, talking about the kind of depth that was in this, with taking a look at these kind of characters trying to integrate into a great suburban city, or what seemed like a normal suburban city, but there's far more to what goes on in this city than that. But besides that, it was cool that this book was not afraid to have fun. That's what comics are all about, too. And it's okay to do that in a series like this where it makes sense. And it doesn't necessarily fit every issue that they're going to do of Secret Six. I'm sure there's going to be some very dark, very emotional issues. But it was nice to have one where it was really just a lot of fun to read. Wicked fun, but fun nonetheless.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, it's funny with those. You mentioned the headers with the little scissors around them. I didn't cut them out because there's no way I would do that. But I was trying to figure out, what if I cut out? What would shine through on the next page? And I kept looking back and forth, seeing if they wanted you to actually do it, if they had set up something so it would look differently. So if anybody did cut them out, let me know. Or I'm actually half tempted to go and get another copy of this just to do it, just to see what the other side would give us. What, if you look through it.
Wow. Yeah, if you wind up doing that, let me know.
Yeah. Because you look at some of the stuff and you're like, wait a minute, but it's, I don't know. Part of me wouldn't surprise me if they did something like that, just because of this creative team. They do that, but I think it was more of a, just a, I don't know, just a thing to put them in there. But it's, I don't know. It'd be kind of neat if you get that though.
I'm looking at the back sides of the pages to try and see like what that would look like. First of all, it would damage the back side of the page. Yeah, but I don't know what it would do on the other side. It's funny. It's just funny the way that it was framed. And all that. I want to see more Catman parkour, or whatever you call that, when he's climbing trees and running around the neighborhood. Like, it's very Spider-Man in the way it works. And I like when my favorite Spider-Man growing up was when it was fun to watch Spidey like climbing and swinging webs and going places. Like, there was this sense of adventure to the movement, if that makes sense. So where I'm linking this is there's an adventure to the movement of what Catman's doing. Like, this is his venting. This is his way to kind of stretch his legs and get out and kind of, this is his walk. I'm taking a walk. But it makes it like an adventure. It's, I used to love walking through the woods when I was a kid. We lived by Colby Park in Wickliffe. Half the week when I was with my mom, and I used to walk down the street and go to Colby Park, and I loved walking through the woods because there was like an adventure aspect to following trails and kind of seeing what was around and stuff, and I always liked that. This gave me that vibe, and I really enjoy that about Catman and what they're doing with him in this series. I found myself in the beginning missing Deadshot. I now find myself getting so into this cast of characters that I'm not doing that. Catman is such an essential piece of this book, though. He really is needed here.
Oh, God, yeah. And this version of Catman, he's a little bit different than what was before, but it's still that same type of quality to him, that same code, that same, that wild man, the cat man that he is, but there's still that cool factor, that part of him that makes you say, yeah, he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. There is some qualities to him. It's, he crosses a line. He has no problem with that if need be, but he's not the maniacal villain who will want to conquer the world. He's got that code. And I love you hit that dog again, Sergeant. I'll teach you to heal. Trust me on that. Cop or no. Just the look on his face, just that, those sequences, and I'm like, man, he is just so cool right there.
In every career, there's those people that have got that ego. Yeah. And they have this need to, because of obviously something intrinsically within them that's making them have an inferiority complex. They have this outward need to make themselves seem tougher by bringing somebody or something down. In this case, it's this guy, the sergeant with the dog. I can think of people I've worked with throughout my life, who have had this, and you're kind of baffled, what are you even trying to accomplish here? Who are you trying to impress, and who do you think you're who do you think's thinking you are some tough guy by doing this? And I love the kind of imagery that we get in Gail Simone's work, where a lot of times you take a look at bullies for what they are, you see their weaknesses in how they're showcasing their quote unquote strength. I love that kind of stuff, and that was very well handled here. And you wanted to see Catman confront this guy. I loved one of my favorite lines in that whole sequence is, "You hit that dog again, Sergeant? I'll teach you to heal. Trust me on that, cop or not." I love that dialogue, and that's Gail Simone dialogue. She knows just when to put in those lines. I'm excited for the new Terminator movie when it comes out, just because I grew up being a classic Arnold, Sylvester Stallone fan. I like those kind of action movies where you get those one-liners. You can sometimes do those too much, and it diminishes from the sequence. If you play out a sequence properly and fit it in where it belongs, you have one of those, oh yeah, hoorah moments. And that was one of those. She's very good at that kind of pacing. She knows how to do action movie. That's not an easy thing to do and do it well to the point where it resonates with you and you're like quoting the lines afterwards and you want to rewatch it. Why did we rewatch all those action movies over and over again? Because the best ones were really well written. They knew when to throw in those lines and at a point where it made sense for the action sequence presented there. This works really well for that. I know a lot of times those get diminished as being, oh, come on, they're fluff and all that kind of stuff. Not the good ones. The good ones knew just when to do those things just right. I love things like First Blood and the Rambo movies and all that kind of stuff because they just knew a pacing that matters. And this does that really well. It's hard. I think it's very hard to do.
Yeah, it's the pacing. It's a blend of comedy and action and violence and tender moments and character growth and just it's a fine dance. It's like we have that cool opening moment, high testosterone moment of Catman, and then you go into the house. And I love just how you get these splashes of comedy, but you get the one art scene where we have the close up of Alice's eyes. And you just see the bright blue eyes with the black hair kind of going over it. And you kind of, the one panel, that's a close-up. And as that's going on, they're talking about all the creepy, freaky stuff going on. But you see, this kid who's had a rough life. Yeah, we've all had a rough life. But she's really had a rough life. And she's still just a kid, guys. Let's keep it cool here. And I love just that moments where she's up there listening to all this going on, knowing that she's got somebody who's got her back, who's actually thinking about her, who's putting her needs over his. And I thought that was just a wonderful scene, the show.
That shows balance. And that's exactly what I'm on about. When you have moments like that where you can hit that deep emotion in spite of all the insanity. By the way, Jim, I have a couch for you. I'll bring it over later.
No.
But
I love that couch joke. That is awesome. It's a playback to the cover, which
yes,
I want the uncensored version of the cover. It's weird, I gotta know. It's one of those things where the curiosity is going to kill me, maybe literally.
I absolutely love that the cover played into the main part of the issue.
Yeah.
And, that too often, because the covers are done in advance, you can't do that. It worked really well with this. And I'll be honest, I didn't catch the whole cover joke until my second read-through. Because I looked at the cover, and a lot of times you just don't connect the cover. You kind of get an idea of like, wow, it's a great visual cover. I'm excited to read the book. I usually admire covers as an art piece in and of itself and don't think too much of the connection between the book because of the fact that we know that a lot of times those are done so far in advance. In this case, I loved that, like, my second read-through, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was right there all along. Yeah. They started off with this joke, and really, really great how that all played out.
Well, speaking also of the cover, there's something that I didn't catch until my third or maybe even fourth read through. I'm not sure which one. But at the very bottom of the cover, you got this white cat drinking out of a whiskey bottle. Mm-hmm. And it's just all part of the whole massive carnage and craziness that's going on there. Then when you go to the scene inside the title, where we have them sitting around on the couch and they're being questioned about the actions on the couch and whatnot, you see that same cat again. And the cat, is draped there. And actually, there's even a moment where the cat bites into the puppet. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? It's just, again, that cat from that cover is still around. So it's not only the cat was the couch part of the thing, but they're taking parts of that and pulling it into here. I'm like,
did you notice the bottle that the cat's drinking out of on the cover?
No, what is it?
Mr. E.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Your kid. Hold on. Mr. E. Mm. Oh
yeah, really cool stuff. I really I love little Easter eggs like that. I love little visual tricks that they do like that. It goes to your point earlier of really it's one of the things I enjoy about comics. I enjoy going back and rereading and enjoying and catching little things like that. I find more often than not that there's when I have conversations with you, you will catch things that I don't. And I really enjoy that. I love it. Like, I've read this multiple times, and there's still things that I didn't catch that were going on. And that's so true of any discussion that you and I have. It's a lot of times we talk about price point in comics, and people talk, oh, comics are getting more and more expensive. When you got stuff like that going on, it's like that adds so much more value to me for reading them over and over again and finding that kind of stuff. And really, especially when it's a good book, it's one that you really enjoyed. I love that I didn't reread this once for the show. I reread this for me. And I just really selfishly enjoyed and devoured every single loving moment of this particular book. It's like wrapped up in a fine bow. Again, I'm going to go back to, I love that this was everything I was hoping it would be, and more importantly, nothing that I expected. That's the part where this is going to be one of those series where it's just going to constantly surprise me. I do encourage anybody. I would actually encourage people, maybe if you, for some reason, Secret Six didn't connect with you the first time around, give this one a shot. It's different. It really is. And I mean that as a testament to the whole creative team. They've taken the whole concept and like what can we do with it today? And I love that. I love that it feels new and fresh and exciting. For me as a fan, I felt like initially in the first issue, I felt like I was coming home, but then I was like, but home is really different now. Yeah. And I like that. I really like that aspect of this book.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, it's, that same coolness that was Secret Six with this villain group who's doing it, but it is a different story being told. It is a different take on it, but it still has that same vibe, and it's got that same blending of, we've been talking about it, blending of comedic moments with serious moments with, these gut-wrenching moments, when the Alice moments throughout this, again, it's, she's a great character, and, she's being paired up with the right people. Especially this nice confrontation where she actually says, tells her real name is Lori. Because they're calling her Alice, like, Lori, excuse me? You told me your real name, Mr. Wells. I'm Lori Letchen. And I like the fact that she is opening up to this guy. She recognizes this is somebody who's looking out for her, who's protecting her. And I thought that was kind of just this cool, tender moment between these two. And when he brings up his girl who died, my forever gal, she died on me. I'm like, right there, you don't see it, you don't realize it, and I'm like, when you find out later who he is, I'm like, oh my God, why did I see that? That's awesome, and I'm hooping and hollering.
Here's the problem with that relationship: it's genuine and endearing. Yeah. What happens when
she learns the truth,
or also what happens when he has to make a decision between her and Mockingbird?
Oh, that's an easy call for him.
Easily. Well,
that's an easy. Come on. He'll do the right thing.
It's an easy call, but the problem is there's going to be consequences to him for that. And I love that. I love that aspect of this whole thing. And it's where the book gets deep. And that's what I love about this. There's layers to it. It's layered storytelling. There's that surface level fun factor to it. And, as you get deeper, it gets into a really deep emotional questions that you have to ask about these characters. I love that layered storytelling. It's what makes the book fun and interesting and exciting and worth reading again and again and really getting these characters' heads. They matter. You actually care about them. You care about this creepy, creepy bunch.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, let's just throw the spoiler out there right now who this is.
It's Riddler.
Well, but I'm talking the big guy. That's Ralph Dibny.
And do you think that's exactly, because it's called Dibny, do you think that's who he is?
That's who I took it 100% that's who it is. And part of me is wondering, because he's got the whole elastic thing, is he pushing out his face, pushing out his body, or is this what Ralph looks like in this universe? Because I took it 100% being Ralph Dibny.
I did too. When it said Mr. Dibny, absolutely, I said that.
Yeah, and also earlier, because when you have that whole couch scene when they're talking, he's like, hey, I got a nose for these things, because he always had that nose for mystery. Later, when he deals with the bully cop, he's like, hey, I got files on all of you. I know what's going on here. There's such classic moments, and again with his girl, that's of course Sue, right there.
Right. I was thinking that too after the reveal. It could be. Yeah, I'm with you that I'm thinking that's what we're going for as well. That it's woof.
Why he took the case, why he's doing this, I don't know.
Right.
But they can't make Ralph any more than he's the good guy. He is. So for whatever reason he's doing this, in the end, if he's got to choose between that little girl and, Riddler, he's going to choose that little girl. That's just the way he is. Now, how will the team deal with it? How will Alice deal with him being the traitor? That, I think, is going to be a really cool moment, because how accepting will they be of him? Is his time on Secret Six limited?
I hope not.
I hope not either. I love him. He's a great character. And now, this issue, we see, the kind of we saw him before as this big brute, didn't know exactly, and now we're seeing more of the intelligence behind him. And we're seeing, as I said, he has the file on the cops. He didn't let, when Catman goes on his own, he rallies the team. Hey, we're all here. Now, part of that was to get their trust, but also part of that was the right thing to do. And you see him taking care of Alice. That's the right thing to do. Part of it is trust, but it's also the right thing to do. So you see these moments, and you start getting into the head of this character that I'm like, I hope they don't lose him now, because he is a great guy. He so fits in this. Plus everything we know about Ralph, that what he went through with, the death of Sue, man, he'll fit with this group. He's got some damage. He's got some baggages that he's dealing with. He'll fit in here.
Strix, Catman, that the violence wears a man like a weapon, with those. I love the taglines on that. You see that, and I'm like, what? Yeah. And then you go to this great sequence right here, where she doesn't understand day-to-day stuff like we do. Like, you take for granted eggs. How everybody knows how they like their eggs, right? Or at least knows a couple different ways they like their eggs, or whatever. Or they don't like eggs at all. In her case, I don't know. Just don't know. Set the table. I don't know how. Make ourselves at home. I don't know how to make myself at home. So she set the table. And I love that she took the bush, the prized rose bush from the garden to set the table. I mean, just great stuff. But it's a weird, demented. You know what it reminds me of? I grew up loving shows like The Addams Family and The Munsters. When you see twisted stuff like that at the table, I'm not saying it's a direct. It's kind of like, this is such an amalgam of all kinds of cool stuff, this book. And you see sequences like that, I'm like, it is kind of a creepy family sitting at the table together. And it's like a train wreck. You want to watch it and see what they're going to do. Because you just know nothing is going to go well, but yet they try to make it work. And that's where they become endearing. Like, sitting at the table there, them trying to make that work, to me, is part of where they become endearing and why you like them, right?
Oh, God, yeah. It's the cool action sequences are awesome, but these moments of them just interacting is what makes this comic so great. Now, I love the physical stuff. I love that story, but these moments are some of the cool stuff here. Especially they're just sitting around, and I do love the fact that he's like, is that my prize rose bush on my mother's supper table? And you're just like, he wants to say something, but Catman's like, Mary set the table. Thank you, Mary. Just to let him know, hey, don't say anything. Yeah, it's wrong, but don't say anything. And it's just, there's just so many these moments that I'm like, what the heck? I still question whether the puppet's alive or not. I don't know if this puppet's not alive. Part of me thinks this puppet is. There's something, it's not just a puppet. I think there's something else going on with this.
You remember her powers, right?
I think it's more than that.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's the funny part. I'm okay if it is more than that. I don't care either way. I'm digging that whole part of it. That the new ventriloquist is in this with the puppet. I was like, wow, that is like, she's so awesome. I'm glad that Gail Simone got to keep working with certain characters that she helped revamp, create, Strix, different things like that, and bring them into this book. Black Alice, her rendition of Catman, but modernizing them. I mean, she didn't just like sit on her laurels. Even with the characters that she created, she's like, how can I advance them? How can I tell you something new about them? How can I show you a different lens? In Catman's case, it's like, how do we reimagine him for the new 52 for a new audience, yet keep him familiar to the other audience? I love that, he's got the thumbs up there with the oven mitt on, with the hearts on and all that. I mean, what a great sequence of events there, because it doesn't diminish from him anything. It just shows us the other side of him. This is the guy that liked the little kitty. when it was brought into his isolated holding cell. And that's the part that I really dig about this. I shouldn't, but I really like these characters. They really are like an adult Muppets.
And again, when we get Porcelain beating up on the Muscleheads.
Yes.
I love that, again, that sequence, once they started saying stuff, okay, this is not going to end well for these guys. And, she gets that great look on her face right before she opens up on them. But then at the end, they're very quietly, again, something I missed the first time through, I'll tell my dad. We learn later the dad is the jerk cop. So we're like, oh, okay, hey. And even in his phone conversations, he's talking about his own son getting beat up. I'm like, man, that is awesome. Again, little stuff, these connections throughout all this, they're just really making friends in this neighborhood.
One of the things that I really like is when you see Catman there, you get to see his costume again. I like that we're seeing costumes in this that are modern. And when I mean modern, I mean it's a different sort of take on a costume. I mean, Catman's costume looks like it looks today. The leather jacket that's on him, the whole kind of vibe, the mask, it feels modern. It doesn't feel like a throwback, if I'm making any sense. It looks like today's fashion. And I want to see more of this in comics, and I want to see it more with characters like a Catman, where it's like, we're not as lockstepped into Catman's costume, so you can play around with him a little bit and do something new like this, yet at the same time it feels so very Catman. I don't miss his old costume at all when I see this, because I just think it looks very cool. Whereas I think if you did this with a Batman, I'd want a mutiny. But you can do it with a Catman and you go, wow, man, that is a cool costume. And it works like that. And I really like that part of it in this book, that it made me kind of rethink like what today's superhero costume should really look like. That's what they would look like.
Amen. I am absolutely echoing you on this one. I love this costume. Uh-huh. Just the way they look, but especially I really do love how they're doing the mask, with, the half face mask. So you're still seeing his bottom part, and just the way the hair even flows over. Uh-huh. It's the mane. He's got the yes. lion mane, if you will. And it's a great look, just everything about this. I was like, man, that's one that I'm really impressed with. The others, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. This is the one that has me going, wow. I would want a drawing of this one. I would want a poster of this one. I would want, sketches of this costume, because this looks really cool.
Statue. I want a statue.
Yeah. Oh, statue. I definitely would pick up a statue of this one. Just because it does have that coolness factor. You're like, man, that does look neat. And again, just artwork, throughout this scene where Catman's beating up our wonderful, police officer here. A couple stuff that I didn't catch the first time through. I love the fact that when the cop's meeting him at the door, he's got his pistol behind his back. I didn't catch that the first time I was looking, because I was so focused on looking at Catman and looking at the sequences, the fight. I didn't catch that until I see later when he's punching him out, you see the gun go flying. Well, you go back the page before and you see it right there, hidden behind his back, kind of nicely in the shadows. Again, this is one of those art and writing teams that just work so well together. I say thank you every time they're put together, because I'm absolutely loving just how this book is laid out, how it looks, and story-wise, this is absolutely brilliant.
I love that this is the Gotham PD, because we know that there's corrupt cops on the Gotham PD. That's always been done, in comics, and you hate those people, and you knew that Jim Gordon has to overcome them. I like that we're seeing kind of a lens into that. I wasn't thinking that at the beginning. I was just thinking, we're playing with a corrupt cop, but I love that it's adding to that kind of mythos. And I love they took the dog.
Yeah. Well, the dog wasn't going to stay there. What the heck? I like that, I love the fact that he's called the dog Perp.
Yes.
And then he's sitting there, telling him to kill, and the dog's like, hey, rolls on his back. It's like, rub my belly, I was like, man, that is neat. And again, another moment I didn't catch on the first read through was as the dog is leaving, he leaves a little sample for his owner. That had me absolutely howling when I saw it.
I like the next issue. We're going to find out how they got here. how they got to this point. And I like being dropped into sometimes, kind of going, you know what? I don't know how we got here, but I like it. I'm having fun. I want to see where this goes. I mean, it's a great story. It's just proof that these are characters that you can kind of mold into any type of story you want. You can go as serious or as crazy as you want with these characters, and as long as you're giving us strong character development and building relationships between them that matter, these are stories that we want to follow and characters that we want to see more of. This is by far one of my favorite books out of the starting gate. This may be my number one right now. And I can't give this book more compliments than that, because in this era right now, we've got some really great comics coming out. And I reread this book more than any book that I've read in recent memory. This issue in particular, I reread so many times, more than I've read time-wise other books that I've wanted to reread. I made time for this one, and that says a lot. Where I make time to reread a book just because I want to reread it. And honestly, this is one of the best issues I've read all year long of any book. And I think we all have those. I mean, we all have got different preferences and tastes and things like that. This totally caters to mine. You want to know a little bit about what my tastes are? This is the kind of story I like to read. I mean, this was really, really fun. It was fun, and it owns that. And that's so rich nowadays when a book owns a fun factor to it. I think it's something that's important. Fun, is an important part of it. My favorite TV shows have fun all over them. We talk about the DC shows. My favorite episodes are the ones that had a certain, no matter how much events were going on in the story, it was a fun episode to watch. And I love that this just exudes fun. Probably the highest compliment I can give it.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny. This is the, for me, right, this is now my top. I will say this is my top title. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite title. And this is going up against the Superman Truth story, which I absolutely love. And it's going up against the Bat stories that have been absolutely phenomenal. And the Green books are coming back strong for me. But this one right here, I have multiple copies of this book. I've got, picked up digitally version of it. So, because for me, digital sometimes can be an easier reread, especially when we're recording. And I made sure I picked up the digital copy of this, and that's why I've been going through as we're talking a lot easier. And it's, I've got no issue picking up, and saying this right here is outstanding, amazing. Once again, it gets a whoosh, and also with 2 thumbs up and a big toe.
On that note, keeping up with the crazy, let's talk some All-Star Section 8.
Let's continue on with All-Star Section 8, number 1. The writer is Garth Ennis, with John McCree as the artist, with colorist John Kalis, letterer Pat Brousseau, Amanda Connor, and Paul Mounts on cover art, John McCree and Hi-Fi as the variant cover artist, Brittany Holzer, Holzherr, is the assistant editor. Marie Javis on editor. Superman created by Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, by special arrangement of the Jerry Siegel family, and Batman created by Bob King.
Now, I don't think you read any of Garth Ennis's The Demon. I don't know if... Did you read any of Hitman?
No, I did not read any of Hitman.
This was a great era of comics when Hitman was out. I actually first read Hitman and then realized that there were elements of Hitman that came out of his run on The Demon, which I had not read. I hadn't been a big fan of The Demon, only because I hadn't been really exposed to the character. So when I got into Garth Ennis, this was during the time of Preacher and all kinds of stuff like that. Preacher was really my first book that dragged me into the world of Garth Ennis and getting to know him. And during that time, he started doing some amazing work. He did a miniseries called Goddess that was super cool. It was really, his name was on something. I picked it up. And I went back and got the issues of The Demon that he did as well. But the Hitman was one of those books that it was an era where I didn't have a huge budget. and it was very hard for me to follow multiple titles just because I didn't have the budget. There was times where I was selling comics and video games or whatever, to like kind of get new things. It was the way to do it. And it was great because we were in an era where we had a lot of your record exchanges and comic book shops and different things where you could sell things and then you would gain cash or credit at the store. And it was ways to kind of keep yourself going. I was always about reading the new stuff or reading things that I missed and enjoying them. And then, I needed to sell things in order to kind of pass it on. Since then, I've recollected certain things that I parted with that were favorites because I wanted them back in my collection for rereadability purposes. But there were certain things that I had to part with at that time in order to just keep the whole thing going. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, I was asking for subscriptions, which was something that I didn't normally do. I liked having everything come, and I would bag and board them and that kind of stuff. But I was asking for the year-long subscription. This was a book I had a subscription to, Hitman. And All-Star Section 8's a spinoff of that. This was a team that was in that book. It was kind of a side story kind of thing that was going on. But I love that there's elements of the Demon that are in this, his run on the Demon. There's elements of things that he did in Hitman that are all a part of this. And this is revisiting a world for me in a mini-series in a way that's really cool. And I hope this is a legendary pairing, Garth Ennis and John McCrea. And when they're together, they do something really, really cool. And if I'm doing any name butchery there, I apologize because the reverence I have for this team is through the roof. This was, for me, one part nostalgia, another part, oh yes, we're getting more. But I have a rich history with this creative team and the characters they're doing. The reason why I asked you the questions I did at the beginning, I'm highly interested in your thoughts on this because you aren't coming from that lens. You're really hitting this from, did you read the sneak preview to this?
Yes, I did.
And then you read this first issue. Where are you at on this? Like, how does this read for you because you don't have the history?
Now, anything I'm about to say is no disrespect intended to any of the creators. I just want to make sure I throw that out there. I love Garth Ennis' writing. You talk about Preacher, The Boys. I'm a huge fan of what he's done, and I've read some amazing stuff. But he's one of those writers where sometimes I go, what is he doing? And I kind of look at the book a little, kind of turn my head slightly sideways, going, what's this? I had that big time reaction with this. It took a couple read-throughs for me to really get my hands kind of brain around this, and I'm still not 100% certain what is going on here. This has got some of that freaky factor to it, and I think part of it for me is that if this is supposed to take place in the DC universe, that is really throwing me off. If this was, Dynamite, IDW, any other title, but not DC proper, even if this was Vertigo, I probably would have a lot different reaction to it. But because this is supposed to be smack dab right in the DC universe, that does have me going, what the heck is this? And these characters, I'm still trying to understand them, and it's like Secret Six, I was laughing my head off, and it's funny, but it was a nice combination of funny and goofy with serious and action. This side of it, I'm still trying to understand the comedic moments behind it, and how much of this is supposed to be comedic, how much of this is supposed to be ironic, how much of this is just supposed to be just weird people doing weird stuff. I don't know the balance. I don't understand them yet.
Yes to everything you said. Yes, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be all those things. Remember, this is a world, first of all, from my reading of this, I'm taking this takes place in the pre-New 52 DC Universe. This is a direct sequel to Hitman. Okay. It's the idea of the events of Hitman happened. This is Six-Pack after all that happened. He cleaned himself up, became a normal, person. These are misfits who live in a world where you've got costume heroes all over the place. So because of that, that's going to lead to some mimicry. And there's some irony to that, to your point is how much of this is ironic, that it would breed characters like this. I think when we're seeing Batman go through his various phases there, when you're seeing the different visual styles, that's because this guy's drunk. Yeah. That's his perception of the whole thing. And it really is, when you're looking at that, you're seeing this world through his lens. It's supposed to be satire versus satire is probably a better way to look at it. There's certain parts that are definitely clearly meant to be a joke, but I think this is kind of satire in a world where you're like, well, this would happen. And in a world where it's so filled with costume heroes. And this really is, I do think you have to look at this through the lens. This is the pre-New 52 DC universe, where the acceptance of heroes and the way heroes are looked at is a lot different than the New 52. I think if you try to connect us with the New 52, part of that joke's lost a little bit, or part of that irony, the satire, is lost a little bit. But if you look at this as it's the pre-New 52 DC universe where heroes are accepted on a very different level. You know, this is the dun-dun-dun Superman that everybody loves, with Metropolis swooping around him. It's that world. And I'm completely convinced it's that world with its continuity, its long-term rich history. It would inspire misfits like this to do this. And it would lead to a Batman who's kind of like looking very dismissive of this guy. Like, come on, man. I got to go off and really do some serious things here. You want me to join your team? I mean, come on. Like, you really shouldn't. Like, if you were spoiler, I would give you the talk about how you shouldn't be doing this. This is dangerous for you. In your case, you are such a train wreck that is so far beyond my ability to grasp. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of, and I like that part of all this. And that's really what this world is. Batman dealt with Hitman. Batman was in issues of Hitman. And obviously, because of the fact that Hitman was, in fact, a hitman, he had problems with him because of it. But never... Like, you never got this idea that he and Batman were ever going to be buddies or respect or anything. He did recognize, though, that Hitman was trying to be a good guy and do good things and kind of, you know, change his life and just head into a different direction. But it was, you know, Batman wasn't a huge part of that series, but when he did come in, you know, especially because he had a role in the Demon as well, they handled him in ways that would make sense. I love that Batman is so much more dismissive of Six-Pack than he ever would of Tommy Monaghan, because Tommy was a hitman, and he knew that that was somebody he had to address. This is different in this case. This guy's a mess, a complete train wreck. I love that it was accidental. This guy had been clean for, like, ever, and avoided alcohol because of the fact that he was prone to have this happen to him. And you get to see that. It's meant to be a fun series. This is not meant to be something you like look at and go, wow, this is like a really serious kind of thing. It was in Hitman, you had an action story that had, you know, kind of fun humor and drama. It really was a lot more action movie, Hitman, with this kind of stuff happening in the background being a lot of comic relief going on. And when there were team-ups with Six-Pack in there, you know, it was that kind of thing. He was an endearing sidekick character. This is an opportunity to experience him as central character in the frame. I'm glad this is a mini. It works as a mini for me. I was very curious to see if you would get this or if you wouldn't, because I'm walking in this with the history. The second that I heard this was being announced, I was thrilled to death. It paid off for me in every way that I expected it to. I was prepared for it. You, I don't think, were.
Yeah.
I would be curious to anybody listening to this, and I will throw this out there, because we'll talk about the issue as we go through, and I think maybe, I don't know if it'll help you or if you're still going to be in the same boat, and there's no right or wrong to that. I'm very curious to see where your journey is with this. But in the case of our listeners, if you're listening to this and you never read any of Hitman or any of, you know, Garth Ennis's work relating to this particular aspect, you know, the Demon and those type of things, like Baitor and stuff like that. You know, Baitor was, as a character I've seen before. I am Baitor. You know, that's a character I've seen before.
My next question.
Yes, Baitor has a history. So I mean, you know, seeing this character now, El Baitoro, you know, that's meant to be fun. I like want to see that animated, El Baitoro. I mean, that stuff was fun, and yes, I was laughing out loud, and you're meant to. This is satire. It's meant to be satire. If you take it as anything other than satire, you're going to get very confused very, very quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I first, you know, read this, you know, I read it and I was like, oh God, no. And I'm like, what the, you know, and then we talked and you're like, hey, yeah, we got a couple listener requests on, to get our opinions on this. Like, okay, time for me to reread, and I had to do a couple read throughs, and it's by my final read through, I wouldn't say there's any hate, there is, but there is still confusion, and I'm still trying to get the groove on this. But had I just read this once, there would have been hate, I would be like, oh God, why? But the multiple read-throughs, re-looking at it, and also there are some funny moments, and there are some moments that, like the whole Baitor, I was kind of cracking up with the guy. I didn't know who he was or what he was about. But, I was kind of chuckling with some of his stuff, and some of the bat interactions, were kind of, just when they started going through the different eras of the bat, I was like, I did chuckle with that. And, you're in the bar. I'm looking at the one bar sequence, and there's a woman, she's got an elephant head. Now, I don't know if she's wearing a mask or if she just has an elephant's head, for a head. I don't know. And that's the kind of some of the stuff that I'm like going, what is going on with this book? And I started looking, that's, again, the art read-throughs, you start pulling out little stuff, and you're like, wow, that's really cool and freaky and weird and whatnot. There's a lot of whatnot in this book where I'm like, what is that? I don't know.
Well, even, characters like Guts. I mean, this is a book where really, first of all, to answer your question, is it supposed to take place in continuity and all that? I always took Hitman, even though it was in the New 52, in the previous DC universe, I should say, and that having Hitman guest star in other books, if he did, made sense. I never took it as, like, when I was reading that series, it always read as its own contained piece. And I'll actually say this, too. Mark Waid's Flash run, for example. I love that because it read as its own contained piece. Starman by James Robinson, read as its own piece. This comes from that era for me where there was books that I'm like, it's cool that you could cross over with characters because of the fact that they were a part of the larger universe. But like Opal City and Starman, I never had any like feeling like you're going to drive down a block and you're going to wind up in Gotham. I just kind of like took it as, yeah, they're part of the same world and it makes sense that the other characters would somehow wind up in each other's books. But there is this sense of belonging to their own world, if I'm making any sense at all, that I kind of like. I like that the book from beginning to end, Starman felt like that. Hitman from beginning to end felt like its own thing. It crossed over into other things, and it made sense when it did, and I'm glad that it reflected things that were going on, but it didn't in the way that, like, Hitman would, if that makes sense. It never stopped. It never lost its identity in those crossovers. This is a great example of a book. Section 8, it's not losing its identity here. I love they call it All-Star Section 8. Like, this is your All-Star team, Dog Welder. It's a mess. It's a mess of misfits where you don't know if they should be locked up or what should be going on. I'm very curious to see what goes on with the next issue. I like that Batman just drove away. He's basically dealing with a parking ticket here, and the parking ticket is more of an annoyance to him than Six-Pack.
Yeah.
Who he's really dismissive of, in the way he was dismissive of Batmite in the Batmite miniseries. This is just a little bit different. Like this is Batman does not have time for this. But I do not take this as being the New 52 Batman, which I know that's kind of strange to say, considering that the New 52 Batman isn't that far of a stretch. But I'm more saying that that's important to set a context of the world that All-Star Section 8 is reflecting. It really is the world pre-New 52, with acceptance of heroes and kind of them being looked up to. Television reports, you would expect them to be mainly saying positive things about like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all those characters overall, versus it being the world now where there's a distrust. That wouldn't necessarily lead to characters like, well, could lead to characters like this, but it wouldn't be in the same level that you do get from this.
Yeah, and it's funny because with the Batman interactions, I really did like when they started going through the different era Batmans and the different costume styles, and even when you throw it right in with the, just how they kept going through that. But I love the meter maid or parking agent or whatever the formal terminology they have in Gotham. I just love when he's dealing with. But I was just using the ATM. I couldn't have been gone for a couple of minutes. Oh, you had to use this one? Well, I get charged $3. Whoa, a whole $3. That one I did laugh at. I did, from the beginning, that whole sequence where he's dealing, with her and getting the ticket and just everything. And it right to the point where it's, I bend over backwards for you people, and the Bane, right back to that Bane sequence where he gets his back broken. But then that goes right into you people. What? Oh, I didn't mean that. No, yeah, sure, yeah. No, really, I didn't mean that. I'm not a racist. I love just that whole sequence that went through there. I did laugh at this one, even though I still was going, what the heck is going on with this book? Right there, that moment was kind of cool.
Did you see the book he was reading at the bar? Hacking? Everest the Hard Way by Dr. Stephen Hawking.
That would be a tough way, man.
Yeah.
I would not feel good for the Sherpas who had to help him up the mountain.
Oh, it's funny stuff. I honestly love, this was fun. This is another example of fun for me. I enjoyed this book from beginning to end for the fun factor of it. I have a history there. And it was funny as I was reading this, when it was a request on Facebook group to like, hey, can you guys talk about this book? I'm like, I'm totally in. I so want to talk about this. I'm like, what a great book for Jim and I to talk about. Then I started thinking about you, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's not gonna get a lot of this because of the history with Hitman. And it really dawned on me. I'm like, wow, this might be a really tough one for someone not having that history to get into because of it. Whereas I dug, this really is fan service, this particular miniseries, if you were a fan of that. I do highly recommend anybody listening to this to read the Hitman series and to read the Garth Ennis, John McCrea Issues of the Demon. This is part of that world. It really is. And it isn't quite, that stuff isn't quite as over the top as this. This needs to be over the top because of the characters involved. I mean, again, you've got Bueno Excelente, Power Tool, Guts, the Grappler, Dog Welder. Yeah.
That just right there is disturbing on so many levels.
It's meant to be. It's all meant to be, and it's meant to be satire. You're not meant to take it too seriously. And if you try taking this too seriously and trying to say, how does this fold into what's currently going on in Endgame, you're totally missing it. You don't want to do that. Don't hurt your head doing that. It doesn't. It just doesn't. And it's not supposed to. It's supposed to reflect that world, though, and be satire on it. It's more Mad Magazine than Constantine. It says that, Constantine belongs. It's not meant to belong. It's meant to be satire. You know what? It's actually more Ambush Bug. This is a lot closer to Ambush Bug, and what I love about Ambush Bug, that you want to think more along these lines. They're just having fun. And it's good fun, and I'm thrilled this is out there. I would be very curious, though, and I really am. Please, if you are a listener who didn't read any of that and you had a different experience than Jim, or if you're a longtime reader and you've read all this stuff and you had a different experience than me, call in. I love hearing different commentary. What was this? This, for me, was Glee. I really loved every minute of it. I love the artwork. I'm a big John McCrea fan. It was funny. His artwork took me a while to get into when I was reading Hitman, because it was a different sort of art style than what I was used to. Once I got used to it in Hitman and started reading the Issues of the Demon, I really came to appreciate his storytelling skills, but also the fact that he plays with art in a fun way. I'm going to say it's like a cartoonist kind of style, that type of thing. And I don't mean that in any way to diminish. That's what I like about it. I like that he's not afraid to play with how you convey visuals of characters and body shapes and forms and things like that in this. And he's got Beitor in this, which Beitor is one of the MVPs of this issue for me, especially that whole Beitoro bit. Like, Beitor was so, because you don't get much verbally from Beitor, you get the visual from Beitor as far as what he's doing. His excitement of being potentially part of the team, he adopts the costume, I am Beitoro. like that's any kind of disguise.
Now, what is a Beitor?
Beitor is like they actually describe it in the issue. He's like a demon from some other dimension or something like that, will wound up being here. And I've got to actually go back and reread. Beitor's been one of those characters that I've seen around for so long that it's hard for me to remember. But he was like some demon for another dimension that wound up being a bartender in Noonan's bar. Noonan was a character in Hitman. Noonan's bar was a regular hangout in Hitman. So that's part of it too. Like, this is a spot that, like, I remember from Hitman. It's cool to be back here again and hanging out with old friends. It's that kind of thing. So you're going to hear me saying Hitman over and over again in this because of that. It really is these guys kind of taking a look and saying, hey, there are fans of this material that really would like to see more from us, and we want to do something for them that is fun and a fun like hanging out and reminiscence, and let's revisit these characters without like going too crazy and being serious about it. Let's just have a good time together, and that's what this read like to me. It was really just a good time hanging out in a place that we remember. Hitman's dead, so I mean, it's like now we got to do this, and we're going to go this route with it and have some fun this way. And I like it. I liked it. I had a lot of fun. It's satire. It's very much satire. If you try fitting it too much into the fold, you're going to miss the boat.
He's a demon lord of criminal insanity, so he can't die.
Yeah.
I'm seeing writing the issue. Shoots big wads of disgusting white fluid that hardened around people before crumbling them into dust.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good power there.
But, like, this is your team? A guy who welds dogs to people?
I'm still trying to get my hands on that guy. Yeah. I can't lie. That one, I really just, and Bueno,
No, it's Bueno Excelente.
Yeah, Bueno Excelente. Yeah, him and Dog Welder. I'm like, okay, Guts is a bit freaky, but I'm like, okay. I am still trying to get my hands on this team and understand what's going on here. I think multiple read-throughs really did help me, get and laugh and understand the joke, but I still don't completely understand the joke. It's one of those, I'm kind of on the outside of the joke, but I'm laughing along with everyone else because I don't want people thinking I'm weird. It's that kind of deal where I'm not 100%. I wouldn't say I am a fan of this, but there's not hate. There is I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to get the groove of it. I may actually pick up some of that Hitman stuff just to try to get a better understanding of who these people are.
Well, first of all, when you started rattling off the stories of Garth Ennis that you like,
yeah,
I cannot recommend enough Hitman. If you liked Preacher, if you liked The Boys, that kind of stuff, you really should read Hitman. To really appreciate this creative team and what they like and what they're all about when they're together, you've really got to read that. And I think when you come back to this, you'll have a different lens. I think Hitman gives you a different lens into this. It really does by its nature. And you really should read it. Or The Demon, his run on The Demon. I would do Hitman first, though, because Hitman was that's a personal bias of mine. But Hitman was so good. So good. Talk about, you like Buddy Cop. Hitman's Buddy Cop. They're not cops, but it's Buddy Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. The two main characters are really, really good in Hitman, and talk about developing a character and relationship drama in a world where you're a hitman. Yeah. But they live it's a sleazy area. There's a sleazy neighborhood. Look at the sleazy dive bar that they're at. It's really meant to be. This is an area that Batman gets skeeved out by. I really don't need to go down there.
Yeah, I don't like this part of town.
Yeah. We'll clean this up after we clean up everything else. This needs a bigger mop. So that's cool. I'm glad we actually got to talk about that one because it's such a different book. Before we go into Wonder Woman 41, it does sound like I'm under attack here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
we got some thunder and lightning storms going on here, and my office gets sometimes. I don't have my air conditioner in for it yet. We have central air in the house, but this room, for whatever reason, just because of the computer and the heat that it gives off and stuff like that, Jim, you'll remember, tends to get rather hot. So I left the window open for the purpose of just keeping some air flowing in here. But we've got some severe storms coming, so you're going to hear a little bit of thunder in the background. But and I will, if it continues to get worse, I will end up shutting the window just so then the noise stays out of there. It's kind of cool, though, when you're going to be talking about a book about a god. You've got that in the background, because we're going to talk Wonder Woman number 41 next. And kind of a casual conversation of the events that have led Wonder Woman to where she's at, I'm sure, along the way. But Wonder Woman 41, Meredith Finch is the writer, David Finch on pencils, Jonathan Glapion on inks, pages 1 to 17, Johnny Desjardins, Desjardins, inks on pages 18 to 20, Brad Anderson colors, Rob Lay letterer, Finch, Glapion, Anderson on the cover, Brian Boland doing the Joker 75th anniversary variant cover, which is gorgeous, by the way, Paul Kaminsky, associate editor, Mike Cotton, editor, Eddie Berganza, group editor. Wonder Woman created by William Moulton Marston. I am loving Wonder Woman. We've mentioned this on the show multiple times. You're following up the great team that handled the New 52 relaunch of this character, and this has become a must-read title for me. I really love what they're doing with the direction of Wonder Woman. I loved the whole Donna Troy storyline and the way that it played out. It was, again, seeing Diana just through insurmountable odds, seeing horrid tragedy, the death of the male Amazons, and, her kind of coming to grips with, I can't leave this the way it is, but also her great compassion. She is, the issue starts off talking a lot about balance and her need for balance, but I think what this team has done too is they've harnessed the balance of everything that Wonder Woman's all about. She's not just this warrior. She's got a great heart, great compassion. Her being a god now, the god of war, is just another piece to the puzzle that adds some complication into her life, but she is, in balance, this wonderful, caring person as well. Other people would have just chopped Donna Troy's head off. But her realizing, no, she's been manipulated into this since her creation, and recognizing, this is somebody that I can redeem. I think I can really redeem her. Made that a fun journey and interesting to see and read. I really love this book. I find myself jumping to it when it comes out. I'm a big Wonder Woman fan.
Yeah, I'm back at the high level of this book for me. This goes back to when Gail Simone was writing Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. I'm on that same level. I loved what was done before. I'm not knocking that, but it was a really cool story. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of neat. There's some neat stuff going on here. But when we got this new creative team going through, we got this whole Donna Troy story that was going through, that for me really kicked it up to 11. And that's as I said, that's the Gail Simone era for me when it comes to Wonder Woman. I'm at that level once again with Wonder Woman, thinking about which with the character where the story's going through, and just everything you said, because I was nodding my head silently along with you that I love the fact she's the god of war, and we get those moments where you see the god of war come out, but this is still Wonder Woman. When they had that flash forward sneak peek 5 years in advance, we see she goes from being the god of war to the god of peace. We see that transformation that may end up occurring, and that's something that I like about Wonder Woman. That it's part of her true strength is her compassion, is her love. It's just that desire for peace. It's that desire to inspire, not just be this champion, not just be this creature, this violence. So I loved seeing that we have those elements still of Diana, and she's coming, and that part of her is coming out of her, and it's we're starting to see that develop and grow.
Yeah, it was funny when this creative team took over. I was worried about the quality diminishing of this book, not just dropping down. It was a book that I was really digging. I agree with everything you say. This book has gotten even better. Like, I really love the direction that it's going in. It's funny. You hear the thunder in the background?
Yeah,
that's with the windows shut. I actually did shut the windows. We paused the recording and I actually did shut the windows. That's how loud it is here. It's crazy. I'm hoping we don't have a power outage because I'm enjoying the conversation, so I want to keep going with it. But this book I really, really love. When she flies and visits Donna Troy, I'm anxious to see the Donna Troy redemption come out of this. I'm hoping that comes with her. I want to see this Donna Troy evolve. I'm interested in this character. She's the new Gumby of the DC Universe in the sense that she was created the way that Wonder Woman was originally supposed to be. She was created from clay because Wonder Woman's Zeus's daughter. So this has added a whole new dynamic twist to the whole storyline here with these characters. And I love Diana's compassion. She could really ignore her. After everything she did, all the tragedy she's associated with, a lot of times you have that post-stress of a battle where, yes, I know it wasn't you and I know it wasn't your fault, but every time I see you, I see that death. I see that violence. And I can't look at you. I can't be associated with you because of the negative that comes with that. Diana's not about that. She's like, I can recognize you were separate from this. I could recognize there's some hope for you. She even tries to give her some advice, on how to rethink life and look for a new direction. And there's something to that. I love the story of the Amazons that were involved, the Amazons that rallied behind her, now taking over the role of the male Amazons. and doing a penance for their actions. I think that's really great. Diana meting out justice, but it being fair justice, and really, again, showing that compassion. I think that's great writing for the character.
Oh, God, yeah. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, Donna, oh, Donna. I so want to see her redemption as well,
I do too.
by the way. I just, and these moments were just wonderful with her in the jail cell where she's disgusted with herself. And she's like, I'm a monster. Misguided and confused, maybe. Self-indulgent, definitely. But a monster, no. And I love just how that sequence, they did that, where Donna's face is completely in shadows. You get the eyes and just the mouth, and she just, just spits out, I'm a monster. And you go right to Diana, and you see the full face. It's just that, I was like, man, right there, that's cool. Again, this was another one of those really great stories as well as art creations working together. And this is some really cool, just visual stuff going along with some great stories. And it's something that fits very strongly in the title. And you need to have, I always say I'm more of the writer. I'm more of the guy who follows the writers. But when you get these team ups, when you get a writing and art team that are working so well together, it just blends everything so together that it's all part of the story being told. And this is another one of those teams that is exactly doing that. And I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah, and the whole story with Zola and the child, which is obviously going to be Zeus, unfolding. I'm so glad that didn't get dropped. That's something that I really appreciate when a creative team takes a look at what came before and says, this is revered by people. People loved this. And I did. I loved the whole Wonder Woman run up to this point. I love that they didn't just drop it. They're like, we've got a new direction, we've got a new focus for the character, but we aren't dropping those things. And I love the segments where Diana's like flying in, and they're talking about, with everything you're doing, how are you finding time for us? And Diana's like, I never am too busy to make time for the people that I love. I like that side of her, seeing that softer side of her. It's what I like about seeing her with Clark right now. I love what's going on in Truth, seeing them and Superman and Wonder Woman together. I love that these books reflect each other in tone. Where she's at right now in this book is very much where she's at in Truth. It's it's what I want to see from the characters. Where we see her in Justice League, this is the character that I want to read. I like the editorial consistency, the writing consistency of these characters between books when it's appropriate. And I think they're doing a really bang-up job of that with Wonder Woman in particular. I'm digging her everywhere that she appears in the DC universe.
Oh, big time. I completely agree with you. They're really doing a bang-up job with keeping her consistent throughout the titles, keeping Superman consistent. This is, again, it's a DC universe, and I love the fact that this Wonder Woman reads exactly the same way I'm reading in the Superman and Wonder Woman, how I'm reading her in the Justice League. It's just, everything is fitting together. And I don't know if it's just the fact that these writers are communicating with each other, editorial, or if it's just because they're that good, they're doing it this way. I don't know who to give the pat on the back, but somebody should get some praises here, especially when you have relationships and you have characters who interact the same way throughout multiple titles, multiple creators. I'm very happy with just that aspect of her.
I think when it's done this well, it's a team effort, and you really who you pat on the back, everybody. I really think when it's done well, you got to pat everybody on the back, because that's the only way that it works. I think you need everybody communicating in order for that to work. And if one person's acting as the liaison, between teams because they're the editor, or, I can't pretend I understand completely how that works, but I think the right people are in place that are doing the right things when this happens. What I love about DC right now, post Convergence, is this month has been great as far as experimental books. You've got those, and the ones that they don't have to be beholden to continuity. And I like that. I like having those books in the mix. I like when continuity's present, though, it's tight. And, that the characters tone-wise, when I say tight, it doesn't have to be, they don't have to be acknowledging every single event in every single book. I don't need that. What I need, though, is a tone and a feel that feels natural, like this is the same character in other books. And those stories can be independent of each other, but yet feel like they're connected just because the character's behaving in the right way. And that's what's happening with Wonder Woman right now. They've really nabbed on who Wonder Woman is in the New 52. And I think that consistency is something that I'm digging. You mentioned it with Superman, too. I'm digging his consistency. What a great character he is. And in Justice League right now, we actually have a Superman in Justice League. We'll have to talk about that book. If we don't get on this episode, we'll have to talk about it over the next month or so, the next issue comes out. We got a character who's still in costume and, obviously predates some of the events that are happening in Truth, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And, he's very consistent, though, to the Superman that we're reading right now as far as, I believe it's the same guy. He feels like the same guy. And I really am enjoying that part of DC right now with these characters. But yet the writing quality is not diminished by that. They're operating in the playground and finding new and unique ways to keep these characters interesting, exciting, yet feeling like they're interconnected. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I love when Diana, I keep calling her Donna for some reason. When Diana,
it's because you sang it.
Yeah, probably because I sang it. Yeah, when she goes down to the forge, and I love just that interactions that we get there, especially because when she's, again, she's inquiring about her sisters who are now working down there. But great line. Like most warriors, they came with a profound dislike for anything they considered to be menial labor. But I found I found that the fires of my forge can mold even the strongest steel. Pride burns away quickly at 2,000 degrees Celsius. I love that line. I just loved how, again, it was just a cool moment that he is recognizing that, this is rehabilitation for them. Yes, he's saddened, and angry at them because they killed off the people who he, men who he considered to be like children to him. They were like his sons. They were more than just the people who worked in his forge. They were something special. And these were the monsters who butchered them and slaughtered them. And so he's got to deal with it, but he's recognizing the good behind why they're there and what's going on, and that it's not just about that. There's more to this. And I thought that, again, that was a coolness of him. And I'm glad that we're not losing characters like him. We're not losing Hera. We're not losing, you mentioned Lola and Zeke. We're not losing these characters who had a profound impact on this series, and it's going through, and they're continuing, and they're growing.
All right, let's go to the new suit.
Oh God, you know what? I love this new suit.
I do too.
I've always been a fan of pants. I've always been a fan of it, but I'm looking at this thing and it looks awesome to me.
Jim, hold on. Before you go any further, people everywhere are really glad you're a fan of pants.
Yes, I am a fan of pants. Okay. Yeah. I know that's an odd statement to make, but I've made it before in the past, and it's always been an odd statement to make. But I do like,
pants.
There is that
pants. You could say it. I like pants.
But
it's
no,
all right.
like when they've tried this a couple of times with Wonder Woman to get her out of the bikini, to get her out of the smaller outfit, and everyone always fought it and complained it. I was always the guy who said, no, this looks cool. Especially now, we've modified it. We're giving her kind of a reasoning behind it. That was, she was before. This is who she is now. Again, it looks really awesome. It looks still like she can still move and fight in it, so it doesn't look restrictive. But it does look, there is a solid warrior look to her in this. I'm really digging this.
I like that in the back they were talking about the new costume in one of the splash pages that talks about this kind of stuff, and they were talking about how there would be different variations on it for different reasons, to reflect the different sides of her. I honestly look at it as, one of the cool things with characters, and Batman does this every so often, where you have specialized suits for special reasons. I don't know that this has to mean that you drop the old costume or that you can't do other variations. To me, there's a signature look of Wonder Woman that identifies Wonder Woman as Wonder Woman. This has that signature look. Her regular costume, her previous costume, has that signature look. There's certain things when you see it, like, that's Wonder Woman. Yeah. This says to me that's Wonder Woman. What do you think of the blades on the gauntlets?
It works.
Yeah, I like that they're retractable. To me, that's
popping the claws and just again, I like when she's when she's wielding a sword and she's got the sword because it fits her. She's not just the lasso. She's not just the tiara that she can throw as a boomerang type thing. She's a warrior. A warrior uses the weapons, and the fact that she's got those on there, they're retractable, so it's not as obvious and as blatant out there. So when she's walking down the street, she doesn't have a big old sword hanging on her hip. This kind of costume, you look at it, you see armor, but you're not seeing, okay, she's going to cut me in half with this. Whereas when she's walking on the street and she's got a sword, or she's got the more gladiator look, she does look a little bit more, violent in those. This one looks like a superhero, more like a superhero costume. And you talk about at the back of the book how there's those variants of, the different costumes. They have the sketchings of them. A couple of them look really, really, I would say, very superhero-esque, and one looks almost like that. Maybe I'm guessing that's going to become Donna Troy's costume. Mm-hmm. Because the one really looks like what Donna kind of had. It's the shorter, the shorter top with, still got the pants though, but the stars down the side of it. That really looks like a superhero costume, and I can see Donna Troy wearing that one. But I do dig the one that's more of a gladiator look as well. Even though it doesn't have pants, it still looks cool. But she's got that sword draped across the back. Again, that has a high warrior look to it. Whereas this one has more of it still has the warrior to her, but it does have the superhero look to it as well.
Yeah. I like her encounter with the guy at the end who is clearly out to nab her. Yeah, well, he's out to nab her role as God of War. Yeah. And he's being manipulated by somebody else, and I wonder what god behind the scenes is pulling those strings. I can't wait to see what that looks like. But we see Pegasus and some of those weapons come into play. And, what you need is the power to kill a god. And I like this unfolding mystery. There's a lot that happened in this issue. I like that it, cleared up a lot of epilogue stuff from the previous storyline, moved her forward, gave us a reason why she would want a new suit that I really liked. And we see, again, some forward movement with this storyline. You're taking us into where we're going next with this. Sense of progression for the character. That really, great action sequence. I loved the fight, the combat between them. I like that we saw the spray that would normally take out any other hero. She's like, I'm Diana. You're not taking me down with no pepper spray.
Come on. Yeah, bring it. Yeah, I know. Again, Gods of War moment that kick in, where the warrior in her kicks in, where she fights through this. But again, he used that more as a kind of a distraction to get away, and just jumps off the side of the building, jumps off the side of the bridge, etc. I liked, again, great introduction to this, who will be a major villain for her. And with the Pegasus coming out, the bow and those arrows, I'm assuming those are special god killing arrows. So we're kind of going to get maybe. I can't think of there was a classic Greek hero.
Perseus.
There was Perseus, but there was another one. I can't think of who the other one's name is. Because Perseus is the more famous one, but there's another one who, what he did was he flew around the Pegasus shooting arrows. And that's how he took out the Hydra, or took out some monster or something. Whereas Perseus flew the Pegasus, but had the Medusa head. So I can't remember what the name of that character is right now, but I'm assuming that's the route they're going to go with him. That's the story they're going to go with him and Diana. Because again, you kill the God of War, you become the God of War. So, who is the puppet master behind the strings? I don't know. These are some neat mysteries they're starting to unfold. Some cool stuff they're starting to lay out with Diana.
Yeah, this is the kind of things that I want to be reading. I love that they put the mythology in this as well. That's something I've always enjoyed about the character. I like in comics when they'll go this route, and bring in, rich lore like this. It makes for a very, very interesting book and a read. This has become, it's been an interesting and exciting title for me throughout the New 52. But man, am I really, really digging what they're doing with Wonder Woman right now.
Okay, it would have driven me nuts if I hadn't done a quick Google search. And the character I'm thinking of is Bellerophon. He flew around the Pegasus and took out the Chimera. The hybrid Greek the monster. It's the wings and the wings of the dragon, a couple lion head and dragon head, etc. Kind of meshing thing, and that's who he flew around the Pegasus, shooting the arrows and killing him out. So Bellerophon, or I have no idea how to pronounce it, but that's who I was thinking of. Our next discussion is on Green Arrow number 41. The script is by Benjamin Percy with art by Patrick Zircher, Zircher, storytellers, with Gabe I always mispronounce his name, and I love his work. It's Eltaeb colorist, Rob Lay as letterer, with Patrick Zerker and Gabe Eltib on the cover. Harvey Richards and Brian Cunningham are the editors. And again, apologies for the butchering, especially on the colorist, because I love his work, and every time I see his name, I go, oh man, I love the work, but I'm going to mess up this right now. So apologies.
Speaking of covers, both the main cover and the Joker cover were absolutely stunning on this book. I love that cover and the look for Green Arrow. This is a book, in the New 52, if there's one book that's had an identity crisis, I think it's been Green Arrow. I think it's had great creative teams involved with it along the way, but it seems to be one of those books that gets a direction going and then there's a creative switch. It gets a direction going, and then there's a creative switch. It gets a direction going, and then there's a creative switch.
Yeah.
We seem to have gotten a tone locked down for Green Arrow now, which I think is the right tone. And we've got it for the last two creative teams leading up to this one. This was a book that I was disappointed was getting yet another creative switch, just because it needs some momentum. And I think all the creative teams have started getting momentums going, and then there's been a switch. This storyline right out of the starting gate is really, really cool with the serial killer. And I like that, we've got, kind of appropriate to what I'm saying, Ollie is in this, especially in the sneak peek, he's in this transition phase of like, I'm ready to walk away, but then he's pulled back in. And I think we needed that right now. I think it's a great way to say to fans, hey, look, we're ready to post-Convergence, give you a creative team, get you in a direction going for Ollie Queen. I want to get there. I've been enjoying this book, so please don't get my comments wrong. I've been enjoying Green Arrow, but I do think it's a book because I really liked this first issue so much, I really want to see this creative team have a run, and a significant run on this book, because I think it's a book that really needs that stamp of what is the identity of Green Arrow in this universe. I think it's a book that has not benefited from the creative switches. I think it's made the book a little bit of a confusing book as far as tone shifts. I do think the last two leading into this one have had a similar tone, so I think it's really easy to jump on this creative team. But boy, right out of the starting gate, this was a great issue with some wicked stuff going on. Am I off on any of this? I mean, I don't know, where are you at on Green Arrow? Are you having the same problems I'm having, or is this just a me thing? Because that's my take. Where are you at?
No, we're very similar on this, with the Green Arrow. And it's, again, exactly what you're saying with the creative team changes kind of does, you get going, you're like, yeah, and okay. For me, one of the things that have really helped me throughout the creative changes and throughout different venue has been the artwork on these books. And there's been some great stuff going through it, especially, as I said, the current art team that we've got here has this really neat style to them, because a lot of this stuff is taking place at night. And one of the biggest complaints I have sometimes with night sequences, it seems too shadowy, too dark, and you don't get the cool details and you lose something. Well, this color team, this art team, they really made sure we know this is taking place at night, but I'm still getting the exact same level of detail. I'm still getting a creepy factor that I would have gotten if they drew it in broad daylight, and even some extra special stuff with some blood streaks along the side of the giant Ferris wheel, and just the shock on her face when she's getting snatched out of the out of the car, and just there's some really cool, artistically speaking, stuff that has kept me coming back on this. And throughout the different Green Arrows, the art teams have kept me kind of in the hunt. It's not been anything I ever put at the top of my stack, because once we start getting to that point where I'm really like, yeah, top of the stack, they change on me. I'm like, oh, okay, back to the bottom. Let's restart, see where this goes. And there's always that sudden change through it. So I'm hoping we get a current team that can give us a pretty decent run on this, so we can really get a good comfort for Ollie, for the city, for the team, for just these, absolutely creepy, pale-faced man that is, I don't know what his name's going to be, but Creepy is a very good name for him.
I love that. Bleach. It's a great book. See, this is part of the problem. I'm with you. I'm a big Green Arrow fan, so I want the momentum there because I'm a fan of this book. So, like, here, this is, to me, this just based on this first issue alone, this is a must-watch book. I want to see where this book's going to go. I love the tone. I love to your point, the art teams have been really great on Green Arrow. This is another stellar art team. The writing on this is really, really tight. This is the kind of Green Arrow tone that I enjoy. This is what I'm looking for. I'm a Mike Grell guy, so this is in that wheelhouse of what Green Arrow should be to me. I do think this is very inviting for people who are enjoying the show right now in tone. I like that it's not beholden to the show too, though. It's the comic. It's okay. Let's have our own story going with this and our own direction going. I want to see where it's going. The Paleface guy, you're 100% correct. I love that he's doing these crazy selfie things. Like he's winding up in places like, hey, selfie stick, can I get a picture with you? Let me get in there. Guess what? You're gonna vanish later. Clues like the arm at the beach and stuff like that is stuff that I'm really digging. It's a creepy, twisted mystery that's unfolding here. So for a first issue, straight on through for a creative team, they're hitting all the right beats of what I want from a Green Arrow book. So I'm really having high hopes for them that they have an opportunity to really have a significant run on this character because they're doing the right things. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And this is a time where I really need it for Green Arrow. I need this. I've needed it all along. I've been very hopeful for the Green Arrow creative teams to be able to have a run for a lot of what you're talking about. It's kind of, let's get momentum going. Let's get going on this end. I'd be curious if Diggle and Felicity will wind up anywhere in this just because they were in the previous run. But I'm glad the sister was there.
Yeah, I'm so excited that the sister was there. And that was something that, because, again, she's a cool character, and I like when we see Ollie with, I don't want to call her a sidekick because she's a level beyond sidekick with her skills, but when he's got a running partner, when he's got somebody with him, that, actually can fight and is also an archer, and she's the future Green Arrow. She's not going to be just another version of Speedy or Red Arrow or anything. She's a Green Arrow, and I think that's the very distinct difference of her as compared to, other sidekicks, and why I don't want to call her that, because I like the fact that she is, and she's dealing. It's the full fish out of fish out of water for her, because she's dealing with stuff that she really is like, hey, she doesn't want to go to school. There's no point behind her going to school. There's I love just that mindset with her, but especially again, little funny comment of fine, but I can't promise I won't slit the throat of the next sophomore that sends me a crotch shot on Snapchat. I'm tongue-tied today. But I do like the fact that, we get that kind of level of just, again, it's that humor, but not, ha-ha, goofy slapstick that takes you away from it. But as you're reading it, you do kind of chuckle because you feel bad for her and you understand where she's going through. And you're like, oh, yeah, she would have those kind of issues.
I love the whole Wart Lady thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really important a lot of times with a character like Ollie. Ollie makes mistakes, and there's times where it's easy to get upset and annoyed with Ollie, and I like that. I actually really like that. I think it's an important inherent character trait of him because it separates him from other heroes. It's moments like this when you see the sweet side of him, where he's like, I took a picture of her and really saw her for what she was, and felt embarrassed that I was making a mockery of her or whatever, and I deleted the photo, and the smashing the phone is, I owed her, it's kind of a way of, I was a part of this. I need to put a stop to this. Those are moments where he becomes really endearing, and it was a single page thing that they did, but a really good story choice there, and I really felt it did something to further our sense of who Ollie is as a human being, and I'm a fan of that in comics, and I really loved that was a part of the issue.
Yeah, again, you got to see your heroes do that kind of stuff. And you think back to where Ollie was, the very, very, very beginning of the Green Arrow, this run. He is a character who is learning from his mistakes and who is growing. And I think that's kind of neat that they're tying in. Granted, it's not a direct tie-in, but they're still tying into who he was and how he's always trying to have redemption for what he did in the past. And that's kind of neat.
Grell's Steakhouse with Mr. Ridge. I really liked the whole selfie thing, or the whole, let's take a picture together kind of thing, right before that Ridge is kidnapped. I loved the unfolding multiple kidnappings, multiple murders. The Star Lion Man's dead. We get to see that in the news. This is a mystery that's, like, again, pulling Ollie back in to his world. He's teaming up with his team again. I always like, you and I are big fans of the concept of Team Arrow. He doesn't operate on his own. He's got, Henry, he's got his sister, he's got these people that he goes to as resources. And I always like the way that it feels different than the Batman universe does in its presentation. There's something to that I think, it makes Green Arrow distinctive, and this book is handling that really well in this issue. It feels different, but it feels like he needs this team, he needs these resources. And I guess what I'm saying the difference is, you always feel like that if none of them were around, Batman would be able to handle it by himself. You know what I mean? Ollie needs these people, and it's okay that he does because he brings so much to the table. I like that he recognizes he needs his friends and his team. It's not that Batman doesn't need Team Batman, but you're very comfortable when Batman has these periods where he becomes dark brooding Batman, and the dark brooding Batman yet is going to use his gadgets and skills and his computers and resources. He'll muddle through. He'll just be a very lonely guy missing a piece of himself from it. In Green Arrow's case, he needs their skill set, if I'm making sense. And I like that. I like the distinction. I don't know why. It just feels different with him.
Well, and you need to have that difference. You need to have that with, because we don't want every comic to feel the same. We don't want every comic to be the same. When we have the Bat Family as compared to Team Arrow, Bat Family, and I think there's a distinction to call them that, where it's, any member of the Bat Family could go out and do what Batman does. Maybe not as well. Each one has their strengths and weaknesses. But Team Arrow, they have their particular function. They have their different things that is actually what they're really good at, and that's what they're going to stick to, and that's what they're going to do. It's like their tech guy is their tech guy. He couldn't put on the suit and shoot some arrows. Now, he's really good at the tech side, so he doesn't need to do that. And just like, but with, Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, any of them, they all have that same type of style, that same type of skills. So it's the difference between the two teams. And I agree with you. I really do like the differences, and I like how this fits with Green Arrow with his team, and especially I like the fact that they're not just going to blindly do what he wants. He set up the equipment for him in the basement. Here's your arrow cave. No, I kind of like it here. This is my own little nest. This is where I'm comfortable at. This is my house. I want to be here. And I like the fact that he does that, and he's not just that blindly following, okay, you got it, Mr. Green Arrow. No, he's still himself, and Ollie is still his friend, and they're going to have that natural interactions.
Yeah, I really like it. I think your distinction of family versus team is a good one. Because you can be a family that feels like a team. You can be a team that feels like a family. But coming from whichever one you come from first changes the tone naturally by its whole process. And I really like that. And you're right, that distinction is what sets them aside. I love the detective work of seeing what was happening on that Ferris wheel. Like the visual, how they were trying to clean that up and determine what was going on. I really liked, we get to see this pale guy, then we see this kind of thing happening when the person's abducted. I want to know more. This is a great way to tease things along the way. Then when he goes to Queen Industries and you see him there, being bored and kind of being straight up Ollie in those moments, I like that as well. Those were things that were rather an important part to me, because Ollie's not the guy that you see wanting to be in the boardroom ever.
Yeah, and I like the fact that this is actually him. Like when Bruce is acting up and he's playing the fool or the whatnot when he's Bruce Wayne, that was him in disguise. This is actually Ollie. He's sitting there actually yawning and bored to tears and going, "God, get me out of here!" It's. Again, that was kind of a neat faction, to have in this, to make sure you're, really declare this is who he is. And again, I like the distinction between the differences between Bruce Wayne, Batman, and Ollie Queen, Green Arrow. They're very similar people in that they're both billionaires who do the crime fighting thing, who are the vigilantes, who have, utilized tools as opposed to having supernatural powers. But there are some dramatic differences between the two of them, and I like that.
His conversation with Broderick when, he's basically saying, hey, look, I'm having second thoughts. I'm having problems. I'm distracted. Distracted is really the better word for it. And that's really what was driving me at the meeting. I wanted to be out of there. I wasn't all present there. My mind was elsewhere. And then Broderick's really talking to me, I hope you have it all figured out and that type of thing. He didn't tell Broderick everything, and I get that. I mean, he's got to keep those secrets. But there was a very honest, real human conversation that he does have these issues on his plate. And Broderick recognizing, without knowing everything, the sheer amount that's on his plate, I thought was really cool. I loved how that played out. When we see Ollie finally in costume, what a great visual that was. Another example of just how this is a great art team. They're doing the hair a little longer now, and I quite like it. I like the whole, the visual presence of Green Arrow in this. I love when he comes down and we get to see again what the difference between using a bow and arrow in combat and batarangs and those type of things. I like that street level combat. There's something of a distinction to him. It's funny how you can read characters like him, you can read characters like Batman, you read characters like Daredevil. Yeah, they're all street level and they've got a similar sort of we operate in the darkness kind of thing. But each one of them behaves a little differently. There's a distinction to them that sets them apart, that makes them unique and valid. And this is just a great sequence of events with that going on, leading into the dogfighting.
Yeah, which, man, I tell you. Gruesome sequences, and you go from this really cool moments where he's saving the woman who, walking through the bad neighborhood. Police don't care about them. Once again, you've got an area of a town where the police really aren't going to go into, so that's kind of areas he has to patrol, and that's kind of the stuff he has to do. But it's the tip leading where to go to, right into that dogfighting sequence. It's weird because first read this paper, second read-throughs were digital. And digital, man, this is some really cool stuff because you're really zooming in, seeing the gore and the grit and the violence of this. I was like, wow, that's some cool stuff, man.
That leads to him being sucked away, and Green Arrow's just one step behind yet again. In the sequence, he doesn't quite see when the abduction happens. But that sequence at the end with the bleach and seeing what this guy's doing to them, oh, boy. Really brutal introduction of a villain. I'm glad this is a 3-part story because this is just kicking off for me, and I'm really excited on the build of this one. I like when arcs are titled and they've got a story build, that there's a certain number of issues of them. I can't recommend this enough. This is really a good kickoff issue to this series, and if you're a fan of Green Arrow that's lapsed, this is a really good issue to kick in on because they give you everything you need to be pulled back into the universe. They get you excited for more. It really sets the pace and tone for what this run's going to be like, and I cannot wait for issue 42. I'm really excited for issue 42 of this series.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, big time. And with the villain, are we going to looking at racially motivated villain, or are we just thinking psychopath?
I don't know.
Because with the bleach, and the one police report said that there was 6 bodies recovered, 5 were African American males. And then of course this guy is as well, and pouring the bleach on it. Part of me wonder, is it just because he's a pale face and he wants to make everybody else pale like him, or is this going to be a racial thing? Because I'm kind of curious with that, because that's a very difficult, hot topic, and I'm kind of curious to see if the comic would actually go that route, because you could just go with psychopath and make him a psychopath, or is there going to be something more to his motivation?
I don't know. I don't know. I think those are real motivations to deal with. And then if you go that route, let's say you go to the racial motivation route, are you going to? Those are tough topics to deal with because you want to deal with it in a way that you want to see the villain get it from it, but you also want to deal with the impact of that. There's a social impact that comes along with that. So I don't know if they're going that route. I guess I wasn't thinking they were going that route with the story. But if they did, I would love to see the social impact of that. I would love to see what that does to people around them, how Green Arrow feels about that. It's that kind of stuff. There's an interesting type of... Sometimes when you go with a difficult story like that, there's an opportunity to tell a larger story in there that could be interesting. I didn't get that vibe, but to your point of, what we've seen so far as who the victims are, it could be going that route. It's a bold move to go that route. Yeah. You have to do that with care. It could wind up being a great story because of it, though, because if you take a look throughout the history of Green Lantern and Green Arrow, they haven't been afraid to tackle... And Ollie is a champion of social issues as a character. So it would be an interesting route to go if they do it. I don't know. To me, if you're doing it and you've really got a good story to tell, where the story has some form of impact, it's worth doing. If you're doing it just to be controversial, not such a cool thing. I don't get that vibe. I feel that there's a story here with some real deep roots that is meant to be told. So whatever they're doing with this, if that's part of it or not, I have a lot of confidence just from the first issue in this story. I don't know where they're going with this, but on that end, but. I wouldn't. Yeah,
no, I'm kind of curious, and I'm looking forward to if they go that route of them handling social impact and handling that type of stuff. There's a lot of stuff they can go with this, or they could even just keep him a creepy guy, which would completely fit because he is a very creepy guy, especially that very last image of him as he's pouring bleach and he's got that grin on his face and just he's got the crazy eyes going. Again, I love this art team. I love just again, colorist, art, pencils, inks, the full art team, just bravo. Just especially that last panel, that ending the story right there with that grin and just wow. Yeah, this is again one of those things where it's really helping out with Green Arrow, and I want to let's keep this momentum going. Let's keep this fire going. This is some cool stuff. Green Arrow's a cool hero. Let's keep it going.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Adam. Again, just wanted to get your thoughts on the Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice trailer. I thought it was really cool, the various shots of Superman, Batman, and everything like that. I think it looks like a pretty cool movie. I just wish March 21st, 2016 would get here earlier. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the trailer, okay? Have a great show, guys. Bye.
I love the trailer. To me, they've already got me. So it's funny how trailers like that at this point, I'm kind of like, they aren't really made for me because you've got me. I mean, here's what I want. He said I can't wait. I'm with him, except I'm willing to wait if it's done well and done right. So if they need to delay it to hit the right beats and do all that, do it. And even it's already been delayed. I mean, the date that he's talking about was delayed for deliberate reasons. I'm into that. It's fine. Get this out. Get it right. I want this right. I want this to feel like one of those epic movies where I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. I'm a Batman junkie. I want to see great Batman on the screen, and I want this to be that. I liked Man of Steel, so I'm excited for this because I liked that. I'm excited for this being the sequel to that. I can't wait to see more of where it's going. So I'm in. I like that it was obviously very reminiscent of Dark Knight Returns. And I would like to see how that's going to play out in that storyline between the two of them. I'm into that part, and I like that it's going to be a prelude to Justice League.
Yeah, it's, again, like you, I'm in even before the trailer, but there was a really cool trailer, and I digged it, and I was like, okay, yeah, and I was like, it was one of those things where I wish there was more hype behind it, but I don't because it's so far off.
Yeah. When
we start, you got to watch the hype machine because if you started way too soon, you could burn people out. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. So I'm glad they gave us the shots, and I'm glad they're working on it. And like you, take your time with it. If it means you're gonna tweak some stuff and do it right, I'd rather you tweak it and do it right and give it to us, right out the gate. The first viewing, I'd rather it to be something amazing than something, we could have done this, we should have done that. No, get the stuff you need to get done right, get it done right. And I'm curious to see how this is going to go into Justice League, what the Justice League movie, what other heroes. It's one of those things whenever I see that, you start thinking, okay, what about this? What about that? There's a lot of stuff that's coming down the line, and I'm looking forward to it. I still am very excited, and I don't know.
You are 100% correct. Actually, I listen to IGN's PlayStation Beyond podcast, and I really like it. It's they do a lot of commentary on upcoming games, but also they talk about trends and their own history with games and their frustrations and what they love. One of the things they get frustrated about, though, is they announced this game like 6 years ago, and there comes a point where like the hype machine kind of peters out, and even like 3 years ahead of time without any release date information, or you keep bumping the release date. Wait till you get a little bit closer and do the gradual build on hype. Same thing with this film. I think they're doing the right thing. Get this little teaser out there so people are aware it's coming, because we want to know. We want more details. We want to get excited, but then keep it a little quiet. Like I liked that this led to then some screenshots and information about Suicide Squad. We've gotten gradual news about the various other DC heroes that are going to be members of the Justice League and possibly appearing in this film. So, I'm excited for this build. Wonder Woman's costume in this looks really cool. I'm very excited. They had concept art. It was on somebody's Facebook page, and I got to see some of the concept art for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in this film. It just looks really good. I don't want to give too much. You're right. Let's ease us into this thing and just keep us excited along the way, but don't overdo it, because then we're going to get worn out and move on to other things. I want the build to be, where it's at. Kind of like they're doing with Star Wars right now. I think they're doing a great job with Star Wars of doing a gradual build, but that film's coming out, in December, and so now we're seeing more and more of the Star Wars stuff. I'd like to see this go the same route, where be careful on how much hype you do. Remind people the film's there. Do the heavy build as you get closer and gradually build us to a crescendo to the actual film. That's what I want to see. This film, I want it to be great. I just want the film to be great. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what goes into it. I just want it to be great. I want it to be great. That's all I want. I have very simple expectations for it. I just want it to be great. I don't care. I don't care what is needed to make that happen. I'm patient as a human being on that type of thing. I've become more patient as I've gotten older with that kind of stuff. It's like, you need to take your time. Take your time. Just get it done right and make it something that I want to watch. You know what I want? I want the movie that I want to watch over and over again. That's what I want. Yeah. That's all I want. Very simple. And I hope that I get that out of it. And the trailer gives me a lot of hope. It was a good trailer, a very well done trailer. Everything I've seen, screenshot wise and stuff that they've done, they're doing the right thing for the hype for it. I'm with him. I can't wait. I want to see it seen, and that's kind of where I'm at on it. They did a really good job of continuing my anticipation. It's funny how that's married to the recent things we've seen with Suicide Squad, though. Seeing that Batman's going to appear there has gotten me more excited there.
Hi, this is Jack Dower from Redlands, and I just got a chance to finally read this week's book, and there's definitely a lot of things I want to rave about, but mainly I really love the new Wonder Woman costume and the reason she put it on in the new Wonder Woman issue. And I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff for people, but the Superman Wonder Woman story, wow, that was great. That really delved into what I like about their relationship. And I love the fact that Diana is so interested in meeting Lana. And it's not a jealousy thing, but it's, this is somebody who was important to Clark and helped make him the man she loved. And then the whole Suicide Squad showing up at the end, I hope I'm not spoiling that for somebody, was just so cool. So, there was a lot of great things this week. The Sinestro book was fantastic. And I have a question about that one. As a matter of fact, here's my question. I don't remember the destruction of the Green Lantern Corps. Green Lantern Homeworld, They mentioned the paling, and I'm trying to think if I read that or not. Can you guys please fill me in on when Oa was destroyed and what Sinestro's talking about, which is why he wanted to take the ring away from Sornak and give her a yellow ring? Anyway, absolutely loving Divergent so far. I'm a big fan. My favorite book, of course, Secret Six and Batman. But also, I gotta say, this new Superman storyline has moved him up the ladder for me, and a little confused on the Green Arrow one, but, I'm going to hang with it because I really liked the Jeff Lemire Green Arrow stuff, and I love Arrow. So, yeah, I don't know if Prez is going to be my cup of tea, but I'm pretty happy. So, what are you guys' favorite books so far? Talk to you later.
It's funny, we were just talking about this off air for all intents and purposes, and I said, wait, let's just click play. Let's click record and let's start recording. Because he's talking about the Green Lantern destruction. There was a cliffhanger at the end of Green Lantern number 41, which we're going to talk about Green Lantern 41, or at least talk about Green Lantern in an upcoming show, which will either be 41 or 42, and we'll allude to this. But he arrives, at with the Green Lanterns having vanished, and we don't know what happened to them. But, go ahead. You were sharing some information as far as what we have, what we do know. What do we know?
We saw Oa get destroyed before Hal took over. That's why Mogo became the new home for the Green Lanterns. and it became the mobile headquarters. So, but we haven't seen what actually happened to them since Hal left the Green Lantern Corps. There was something happened after Hal left in issue 40 to what we saw in issue 41. And it's, I think, the Lost Lanterns, I think, are going to show the actual destruction and disappearance of the Green Lantern. So right now, if you're confused, it's because we don't know what happened yet. Sinestro knew that it was coming because of his psychic, and that's why he made sure Sarnek had the yellow ring, so nothing happened to her. But we don't know exactly what happened to the Green Lantern. I like the fact that this is a giant mystery, that we're seeing bits here. These people are saying, hey, the Greens are gone. Well, in Sinestro, the Greens are gone. The yellows aren't, and Sinestro's doing his thing. And Hal's not affected because he's not using a ring. He's got that prototype weapon, and he's now starting to see what's going on here, trying to figure this out. So, when the Lost Lanterns issue comes out, that's going to give us some more piece to the puzzle. And I'm assuming Omega Men's going to give us some more piece of the puzzle because they've got Kyle Rayner in their title. So we're going to get, I think, all these different pieces, these different comics are going to give us little pieces of the puzzle, and eventually down the line we'll all figure it out together. And it's
a mystery, very much like what's going on with how we're starting to get in the Superman title, and unfolding of what led to where he's at right now. This story is very similar. There's pieces to be filled in that aren't there yet. I read Lost Army. Your assumptions as far as we're getting pieces along the way is exactly where things are going. We're getting pieces. We're still not there. I like that. I like the mystery of it. But he's asking great questions. Those are actually the questions I think I'm finding interesting and I want to see explored. So he's in the same place we are as far as that goes, with his interest in finding on where that goes. Can we talk a little Superman Wonder Woman, seeing as he mentioned it? You read that issue?
Yeah.
I really loved that title, too. He talks about Lana and Clark's relationship, and how basically, Diana is very interested in what makes Clark who he is. But also, I love when he finds that bunker, or revisits that bunker after everything was taken in Smallville, from his family's farm. And he takes Diana in there, and this is like his place in his childhood. As he started to discover his powers and started to feel more and more different, he went into seclusion when he could, to kind of, because he didn't feel like he belonged, and he wanted to feel like he belonged. He was trying to sort himself out, and this was a place of safety for him. And I love that she's, so compassionate for him there. I'm a big Clark and Lois guy. Lightning's probably going to strike me. I think I like Clark and Diana more.
Yeah. Oh, man. I
do.
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to like them together more. This is because it's so well written. And I feel like it's blasphemy because I'm such a fan of Clark and Lois together. But man, is this a well-developed relationship. Moments like this are absolutely, you know what it is? It's Pete Tomasi. This is what we loved about him in Batman and Robin. I love that he's tackling this in Superman Wonder Woman because he's doing what he did with those two characters in this book. And not those two characters, the whole Batman family. He's dealing with that with Superman and Wonder Woman here, and man, is he doing a bang-up job bringing in Lana and using Lana as I think he's doing the best explanation of Lana in the New 52 yet.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And it's, when you read the sneak peek that was throughout Convergence, things aren't looking too good for Lois and Diana, but I'm like, that to me looks like it's a direct stem out of what we're seeing right now in the Superman Wonder Woman story. So I think what that sneak peek occurs after the most recent Superman Wonder Woman, probably even the next issue as well. I think because it was like Clark was desperate to try to recharge up, get his powers back, and just kind of take to the point. And I love just again. Diana throughout all this has been just this, I love this relationship because seeing these two together, and it was something that really started me enjoying the character more and more and more, was seeing her and Clark interacting, seeing them, and actually seeing Diana, more, when she's with Clark. She's still Wonder Woman, but we had some great Diana and Clark moments. And again, it's this relationship. I'm with you, man. again, I was the guy who was saying, no, we can't. Lois and Clark. I was waving the banner, and now I'm like, that was a good relationship, but I really love this one. This, again, you get the right people writing it, man. You're like, yeah, this is and it's, again, one of those titles that has some really cool action moments, some really cool story-driven, gut-wrenching heart moments, and you get some other stuff where you're thinking, wow, that's kind of interesting, because Clark is back in Smallville, his town, the town that he grew up in, the town that knows him as that little kid. And even they have some issues. They're like, hey, we know you're a good guy. We know the kind of person you are. We know your heart. But we kind of could use a little bit of time off, man. We could go with not so much crazy stuff going on here, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. I love those moments with him and the townspeople where they're like, hey, back off a little bit.
Do you believe Superman doesn't? Let's go to the preview, because we'll talk about that one, the sneak peek. Do you believe he doesn't love her? I don't.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I think he's doing. I think there's a reason he's doing that. He's probably trying to keep her distance or something like that, because he doesn't want to drag her where he's going. I don't know. There's a reason behind it. I love that the relationship is being a focus in this book, and I really love the relationship. I'm finding myself captivated by this relationship between Superman and Diana.
Yeah, that whole thing, I think, was just there's something else going on, because you see his desperation to find Lana. I think there's an outside force, and we know there's definitely an outside force snatching bodies, but I think somehow they're tweaking with emotions, and maybe they're targeting people that Clark, loves. Maybe they're going after that, so maybe Clark's like, hey, I can't, it's one of those, to protect her, I'm going to try to push her away from you.
Right.
And that's how that was the first thought that popped in my head, because, dude, if, even if he doesn't have feelings for her anymore, that was the worst way to do it. That was the absolute worst way to do it. And plus, I can't believe that Clark would do something like that, would be that way.
I can't if there was a reason to protect.
Yeah. There's got to be. That's what I'm holding my head on to right now. That's got to be what it is. It's I got to protect her to keep her away from me for some reason. Maybe it's because we saw his family farm get ripped up, and not only his family farm, but the neighbor's farm that was their property, that was the Kent family property for all those years, that was sold and leased to somebody else. That also got snatched up, just in case, because that's Superman stuff. So maybe he's got to, start separating himself even more. I don't know. We're gonna see in the title, and it's one of those things where I'm confident and I trust the creative team. So give me a cool story, guys. I know it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I want to see it. I really, really want to see it, and that's the good thing about this. What a great, great story this is, and I'm really loving every aspect of that. Superman Wonder Woman's been a great, great title, and it's a book that really, talk about surviving a creative change. It survived a major creative change, and wound up being just as good of a book with the creative change. That's because you got Pete Tomasi. Can't go wrong with Pete Tomasi.
Hey guys, Sam calling in from Seattle again. I haven't called in a while, but I was listening to you guys talk about Superman, and I'm loving this new arc right here with the grounded, the depowered Superman. I mean, I just finished Superman and Wonder Woman 41. That was great, and I might even pick up Wonder Woman now because of that. I mean, the things that they're doing to him as a character, and they're doing, for us, it's shocking that they're doing this to Superman. It's great, and I feel like I'm in the I agree with you guys that we're in the minority on the forum pages that I go on, and the Superman subreddit, the DC Comics subreddit. I make some posts about it, and it seems like that no one really likes it. They're stuck in the old ways of like, this isn't Superman. Leave the dark, gritty stuff to Batman. But I just wanted to agree with you guys. You guys are on it. The truth is going to be awesome, and I don't want him to stay like this, obviously, but it's really nice to see him get, just get in a fist fight with a bunch of guys and kick their ass. It's great, and not hold back. And the cape around the knuckles, and it's great. I also wanted to bring up, I just picked up, I waited for the release some on the West Coast for Arkham Knight. Sean, I know you game a lot. That game is beautiful. That game is amazing, and I highly recommend it to anyone, even if you don't play games. There's so much in it. I've jumped in about 10 hours into it yet already, and I'm I haven't even done any of the side quests, anything, and I'm only 20% done with the game. It is amazing. And I mean, I've found so many little Easter eggs. I won't spoil anything, but I mean, if you just look in the game, if you just look on the walls or on posters or, you know, a locker cabinet in one of the factories, you'll see Easter eggs. You'll see other DC comic heroes' names or alter egos or symbols. And they're not even part of the game. They're just little reference points. It's great. This game, I mean, I have Arkham City, I have Arkham Asylum, I have Arkham Origins, which was, you know, it wasn't made by the same developer, but still good. Arkham Knight, I haven't beat it yet, and I won't spoil anything so far in the game, but my jaw dropped from the story. It is amazing, great. And Sean, I hope you picked it up, because I waited there until 9 o'clock, which is midnight of Eastern time on Monday. So it's amazing. Keep it up, guys. I love listening to podcasts. It makes the long drives to work a lot better. So, all right, thanks.
Yeah, he was talking about in the Arkham Origins game all the Easter eggs. I mean, not Arkham Origins. He was giving some love to Arkham Origins. But he was talking about in the Arkham Knight game all the Easter eggs that are there. There's like one of the clubs is the Black Canary Club. There is when you go into Oracle's clock tower.
Yeah.
There's a Grey Ghost poster from Batman the Animated Series. I remember if you remember the Grey Ghost episode.
Yeah.
There throughout the game, all over the place, there are Easter eggs to Batman history, to DC Comics history. It's just fun. He's 20% in. I'm in the same boat. We're like in about the same location, and you know, it's funny. There's side quests in the game. Azrael's in the game. You know, there's all kinds of different things that are happening within the game that just give you the sense of immersion into Batman's whole world. Like, these are obviously fans of Batman that are behind this game, and they've gone out of their way to make this a fun experience for fans that you just geek out along the way. It's one of the reasons why I told you it's fun to just kind of mosey around, because it's like, what can I see? I'm glad that games are becoming more. It's funny. I got the game The Witcher for the PS4, which is incredible. Witcher 3. It's a very open world game. I'm enjoying playing it. And one of the things about The Witcher that it was a podcast Beyond was talking about was every so often don't follow the path that they give you. Just kind of go off the beaten path and wander around, because there's all kinds of cool things to see because it's an open world. And Batman is probably the only thing that could pry me away from that awesome gem of a game. So I'm playing with in Batman, and it's fun to go off the beaten path, and I think it's because of their commentary on Witcher that just made me do that. It's fun to just maybe not follow the quest and just look around and stop and kind of see what's doing in Batman's world, because the visual style is amazing. You'd swear this is a live action film, because there's a lot of times the visuals are so good. You can see like sweat on Batman's face, you know, under the cowl, you know, or you can see actually, you know, around his cheeks and jaw. The fact that, you know, the world and the rigor that he's going through affecting him. You will get new gadgets and suits and things along the way that make sense to what's going on. You can upgrade the character along the way, and you can choose to like either get a new gadget or it's because you level up as you play. And as you do combat, you get level up. And so it's got kind of like MMO or, you know, RPG elements in there. You can choose what to upgrade. Like, you can choose to do Batmobile upgrades. The cool part is you visit Lucius Fox partway through the game, and he's a contact with you, and obviously Wayne Tech R&D and all that kind of stuff. You get to choose what upgrades to the Batmobile he focuses on. And each upgrade will be explained, and you can go, oh, well, I kind of want this now. Or, instead, I want this now. And there, you know, be upgrades to the weapon systems, it'll be upgrades to the EMP, and they all feel like very much things that Batman would have on a Batmobile in a combat situation where he's trying not to kill people, he's trying to disable, disarm, and all that. Really, really cool game. I'm glad that he called in with just another, you know, kind of love fest for what everything that game is. There's a lot to do in it. He said he hasn't done any of the side quests. I think I started some of them along the way. The nice part is everything has, like, chapters to it, you know, in the sense that you can go meet Azrael, and then, you know, he's showing his worth, and that's part of what his goal is. And you'll actually take over and beat Azrael during that part, and you know, because he's trying to impress Batman, and then Batman will then go off and do other things. You can choose to continue to follow the Azrael path or go do something else. You have a lot of freedom and control as far as where you go to continue different storylines that are going on in Gotham City, and I really like that aspect of it, because it feels like you got a lot of different Batman comic books going in the same game, and yet it all feels like this stuff all would be happening at the same time, and Batman would have to make a choice. Do I go back to Azrael? Do I continue after Barbara Gordon? Do I continue doing this? Do I continue doing that? What a great game in the way that it's developed. There's a lot of love there for the Batman fan. Nothing feels like it was just... some games you feel like you're doing busy work to level up a character. There's none of that in this game. Everything is like just for the joy and fun of being Batman. And man, is it cool to drive the Batmobile. The Batmobile has this cool feature in the back where, like, if you're rescuing somebody, the back opens up and has these fold-out seats. And there's 2 of them in the back where you can safely store somebody, a person.
Cool.
So they're protected because it's a one-seater. But then in the back, it has, like, the back will open up where the thrusters are in the back. It will open up, and there's 2 seats that are, like, secure and protected for people that you're transporting from place to place. Whether it's a villain or a person you're trying to protect. That part was really neat.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, so you'll go in and you'll be trying to rescue these scientists. You'll drive into an area, and when you get to them, you will load them into the Batmobile. You have to take them back to Commissioner Gordon before you continue on with the mission. So you actually have to take through the process of getting them to safety. It's cool.
Oh, nice.
So there's a lot of attention to detail and all the things that you're like, oh, man, it's cool that they threw that in because there's this extra sense of now I'm responsible for getting them to safety. It's not just I rescued them and then they mysteriously run off into a corridor and, like, you assume that they're going to be safe. No, you have to make sure they're safe. That part's cool. I like that.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show, so please consider calling in. I love the commentary. It's great to have people a part of our episodes. We are, as always, at RagingBullets.com. If you want to find news on what's going on with the show, we give updates. Jim and I, our work schedules, both of our jobs have changed over the last couple years, and our work responsibilities have made it so that we basically are trying our best to be a multiple episode a month podcast. We're shooting for 4 episodes a month. A lot of times our updates come right through the website, so please check there to see what's going on with the podcast. We're committed to put out one of the best comic book podcasts out there every month for you guys, so thank you for sticking with us and being patient. We are continuing to love doing the show and love your support of the podcast, so the RagingBullets.com is the place to find that out. It's linked to our Twitter account. We have a wonderful Facebook group and Facebook community. Over the Facebook group, it's really, I love checking out the Facebook group just to see what people are chatting about. They post news tidbits about upcoming comics, upcoming film, upcoming games. They talk about all kinds of pop culture. It's a fun, open group. And just friendly people who want to chat about things that are important to all of us. So consider joining that group. Remember, in the settings, there's great ways if you don't like getting all the email updates, you just like going to pop in the group and communicate. You can turn all of that notifications off in your settings so it's not as obtrusive. And I encourage people to do that. If you're like, I shy away from Facebook group because I get too much nonsense, you can turn off how it notifies you or adjust how it notifies you to your preference. So don't let that shy you away from being a part of this wonderful community of people. And we're on Google+. We have personal pages on Facebook. I have a personal page on Google+. I have a PlayStation Network account. Feel free to add yourself to that. All of those are available on our website under the About Us section. And I try to keep those up to date regularly with ways that you can get a hold of us. But basically it's all about communicating with you. And like I said, we love, Jim and I have been doing this. We're heading on to our 10th year in March, actually. It's going to be 10 years of podcasting. And we come back because we love communicating with not just with each other, but with all of you. We always talk about it. We could do this on the phone. Again, we would. But the fun part is being able to share this with you to get your interactivity. I love the voicemails. I love seeing people's comments after the show. So thank you for the continued support of our podcast. It means a lot to us. Sponsoring us this episode is once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Go over to DCBService.com and check out the brand new discounts that are coming this month. And remember, link to the Comixology and MyDigitalComics.com and earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Over at InStockTrades.com, as I mentioned, there is the amazingly super cool JSA Omnibus that you can get at a discount. It's 50% off, only $62.50. If you didn't get a chance to read Witches as it was coming out, the trade paperback Volume 1, which collects the series, is available. It's 50% off, only $4.99. And that's Scott Snyder. Jim, did you read Witches? Did you get a chance to check that one out?
I haven't had a chance to get it yet.
That's one of the things I love about doing some of these ads. I like to point people to things that I think are going to be of interest that I enjoyed, and that is a book that I really enjoyed. I'm a big Scott Snyder fan, and I think it's one that'll, you were a fan of his American Vampire as well. This is a great opportunity to read another one of Scott's work, so I wanted to shout that out to everybody. Molly Danger. Jim and I are huge Jamal Igle fans. This is a great all-ages, fun, amazingly cool read. The artwork is gorgeous, a great storyline, a character, and a group of characters, I should say, a character family that is really fun to read. It's exciting work that's coming from Jamal Igle. Be sure to check it out. I've got links in the show notes to his Kickstarter campaign, and it's halfway there. So we got 22 days left, and I'm really asking, if you support the show, we don't ask for donations or anything for the podcast. People have been very kind to us over the years, but what I like to ask people to do is support projects and things that we think are interesting. And Jamal Igle, his work is, I really think you're going to get a lot of bang for the buck out of this one. It's just great material. I loved the first volume. Can't recommend it more highly. If you were on board for the first volume, you're already going to be on board for the second volume. This is more of a notification that you can do that. This is a relaunch of the campaign that we announced previously. Jamal has removed the audio book funding from it in order to, kind of shrink down the amount that he's asking for and to get this series out into people's hands. So please consider supporting Molly Danger, the ongoing series, the current Kickstarter from Jamal Igle. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be talking more comics. A lot of great stuff has come out from DC. Basically, how we're going to handle this one, if we don't get to it, the book in its first issue and the second issue comes out in the new relaunch, we are going to shout out the second issue. The other thing we're going to do along the way, though, is we're going to make sure that if there's cool events that are happening in titles that we just want to shout out, we're going to kind of organically just say, hey, what books you want to talk about this week? We will get to all of the new titles. We will get to all of the new status quos. Along the way, we will also be revisiting major events that are happening in the titles that we know and love to try and talk about everything fun DC. Jim, just before we wrap up, general impressions this month, because it was asked in the voicemail and we didn't really address it. How have you been digging this month, kind of in general? The new releases, brand new miniseries, some very connected to continuity, some not. How do you like their approach so far? I'm
loving this. I'm really digging what we're getting. We talked this episode about Secret Six and just how amazing that was, and the Truth storyline with Superman has me so happy and so like, oh my god, what's next? And just there's been multiple titles within this series that it's really taking up to 11. With the comment about Wonder Woman, how they're saying, hey, I may start picking up Wonder Woman. Pick it up. I highly recommend it. It's been a great series, and it's something, as I said, I compare this current run to my upper standard when the Gail Simone was doing Wonder Woman. There's so much stuff going on through here that I'm absolutely excited. A lot of times when I'm getting my books, I'm reading, going yes, and I'm diving into it. Then I'm doing a reread, and then I'm going, okay, let me do a reread for the show. I'm doing multiple rereads just for my pleasure and my enjoyment.
Yeah. One of the things I'm digging is the experimentation. I love that there's really cool, new, different series that are trying out. With that being said, I've got a request for next week. I want to talk Dr. Fate.
Oh, definitely. We'll definitely talk the Doctor.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff to discuss, but I really want to talk Dr. Fate, so we'll do that for sure next week. We will see you then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.